Chapter 2259. Afraid of Huai's heart soaring, wanting to soar to the sky and kill immortals. The instant Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan clashed their sabers and swords, breaking the strike of the genuine fairy basket, they each turned into a beam of rainbow light. One saber, one sword, and one saber, they headed for the top of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Up in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, the veiled woman showed a slightly unsightly expression. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan broke the peak strike of the genuine fairy basket. However, the veiled woman did not have much time to lament, as Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan arrived before her in an instant. Peonies bloom, and spring fills the world. The veiled woman shouted again. The sea of flowers covering Yen City spun continuously with the Smiling Daughter Pavilion as the center. The surrounding white-clad women continuously danced around the veiled woman with their swords. The Azure Lotus Sword Immortals executed their powerful sword dance again, looking like an immortal flower spinning quickly. Dang! Ding! 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 The sword dance blocked Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan, preventing them from getting close. The two turned into two beams of rainbow light, continuously attacking the group of Azure Lotus Sword Immortals. In that instant, tinkling sounds filled the air, echoing endlessly and resounding in the clouds. From the outside, it looked like a peony blooming at the top of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, stirring up a sea of flowers. The two beams of rainbow light surrounded the peony, continuously turning mysterious phenomena in the air. However, they could not penetrate it. After stabilizing the situation, the veiled woman shouted angrily and activated the genuine fairy basket again. A tornado made of flower petals surged over, forcing back Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan. Below, Su Ye's expression changed slightly when she saw the situation. The 10 fingers crisscrossed, and the zither music changed again. The other women moved with it. Immediately, the tune sounded like a clear spring in the mountains. Flowing water struck rocks, reverberating endlessly and looking as gentle as jade. The zither infused Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan with tangible energy. Their divine energy and soul energy soared rapidly. It was so much so that one could see with the naked eye that wisps of spiritual light formed by the tune entered their bodies. Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan had grave expressions on their faces as they looked at the tornadoes formed by the sea of flowers. Within the tornado, the veiled woman and green lotus sword fairy hid within it. Using the sword dance to activate the tornado, it violently attacked. On the surface, the two of them seemed to be quite relaxed, but in reality, they were facing an enormous pressure that outsiders did not know about. Even though the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden were continuously injecting spiritual energy into it, it was not enough. However, the tornadoes formed by the Sea of Flowers could only retreat step by step. If it were an ordinary sovereign emperor, they would have been smashed to death by this storm in just one exchange, torn to shreds. Xiao Chen, with our strength, we can't break through this sea of flowers by ourselves. Xiao Chen, who was brandishing his saber and fighting against the tornado, heard Chu Chaoyan's voice. He was referring to the sea of flowers, not the tornado in front of him. Indeed, while it looked like there was only one tornado, the true source of this tornado was the entire sea of flowers covering the imperial capital. The entire sea of flowers covering the imperial capital came from the power of the genuine fairy basket. It was already a peak superior grade soul tool. Furthermore, the many Azure Lotus Sword fairies worked together to drive it, bringing out the fairy basket's might to its limits. If not for the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden's support, the two would not be able to last one exchange against this tornado. The Azure Lotus Sword Fairy took the initiative to attack. She stirred up the sea of flowers and materialized the tornado, bringing out the true fairy basket's might to its limits. The storm slowly surged forward. The 100 fairies of the Pear Garden relied on Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan to hold on. If Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan could not hold on, the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden would not be able to escape destruction. The reason was that the soul tools of the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden were slightly inferior to the original fairy basket, which had been passed down for a long time. What do you think? One more dance. We need to bring out the laughing saber and sword's might beyond normal before we can break this tornado. After that, We need to take down that veiled woman in one go. Otherwise, we do not stand much of a chance of victory. All right. Xiao Chen did not hesitate, choosing to trust Chu Chaoyun unconditionally. The two exchanged glances. Immediately, a kind of tacit understanding passed through each other's hearts. A clash of sabers and swords required extremely high tacit understanding for perfect execution. Such tacit understanding could only be achieved by trusting one's life and death to the other. Everyone watched as the Azure Lotus Sword Fairy pushed Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun back like a hot knife through butter. The two of them suddenly made an action that shocked everyone. At the same time, they stopped using the weapons in their hands to block the tornado. Just as everyone cried out in shock, the tornado looked like it would swallow up Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun. Then, Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun turned into two beams of rainbow light again, clashing with this tornado. The two brought out their saber Great Dao and sword Great Dao to their limits. Before the tornado formed by flower petals, the two's auras flourished. The instant they clashed, it even looked like the two had a deep grudge against each other. Such a scene was incredibly shocking. If one really wanted to kill or had a weaker tacit understanding, they would either die to the other party or the tornado. Dang! However, when the saber and sword clashed, accompanied by the music of the 100 fairies of the pear garden, it looked like the two were in a life-and-death battle. A vast aura that could shake the world erupted. The two vividly brought out the ancient contradiction of the clash of sabers and swords. At this moment, the two forgot everything else, only having each other in their eyes. Decades of life-and-death grudges and entangled fates perfectly materialized in this clash of sabers and swords. Furthermore, the two possessed outstanding talent in the saber Dao and the sword Dao. As the 100 fairies of the pear garden sang the laughter of the saber and sword, the world entered a profound state. Everything else in the world seemed to become a side character, just a stage for the two to clash of sabers and swords. It's done! Among the 100 fairies of the pear garden, Su Ye's eyes turned moist. The zither in her hand released a weak light. There was no need for her to do anything. As the saber and sword clashed, the aftershocks from the clash naturally played. The other women also discovered this scene in surprise. Then they released their instruments. They allowed the aftershocks from the clash of sabers and swords to freely play the laughter of the saber and sword. Rumble! The instant the mysterious phenomenon appeared, the sea of flowers covering the sky of the imperial capital shrank continuously. The sea of flowers looked like a funnel, retracting into the authentic fairy basket at a speed that the naked eye could not capture. In the instant that the sea of flowers disappeared, the tornado suddenly dissipated. Dozens of green lotus sword immortals. The dozens of azure lotus sword immortals revealed their true forms and vomited a mouthful of blood, knocked back. How could it be like this? The veiled woman paled, and blood leaked out of a corner of her lips. This was completely unexpected. To think that the azure lotus sword immortals would lose to the 100 fairies of the pear garden, in such a sorry state before everyone. Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun separated from each other again. Each of them transformed into a streak of light and charged toward the green lotus sword fairy. The moment the flower blooms, it illuminates 3 lives. Boundless chaos, heaven and earth sword dance. The two took advantage of the clash of the saber and sword to create their strongest momentum and unleash their killer moves. In an instant, saber light and sword shadows flashed, and green lotus sword immortals were cut down one after another. It was unknown if they were dead or alive. After a while, only 3 people remained on the roof of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Xiao Chen, Chu Chaoyun, and the veiled woman, who was kneeling on the rooftop with a sword and a saber on her neck. Snowflakes reappeared in the sky that was previously covered by the sea of flowers. Pa pa pa! Just at this moment, applause suddenly rang out. The first prince, Wang Fei, was riding on the nation's guardian divine horse, the Fire Qilin. He was alone in the ruins, clapping his hands as he walked out. Lord Xiao, thank you for giving me such a big gift for my wedding. Thank you for your kindness. However, it wouldn't be good if someone died. You can leave now. Wang Fei said with an indifferent expression. As soon as he finished speaking, Rumble? Rumbling footsteps resounded throughout the world, causing the entire world to tremble. Countless armored figures surged over from all directions, surrounding the smiling daughter pavilion and the 100 fairies of the pear garden in 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. The encirclement was airtight. Xiaochen looked around. Banners fluttered and people moved. This Wang Fei actually mobilized the entire divine guards while the 2 sides were fighting. I wonder if the 100 fairies of the pear garden still have the strength to fight and break out of my divine guard's encirclement? The first prince, Wang Fei, said indifferently as he looked coldly at the exhausted Su Yi and the others, speaking calmly. Over. The first prince's move is truly unrivaled. He mobilized the entire divine guards. No wonder he did not make a move earlier. It turns out that he was preparing this trump card. This trump card is the first prince's true trump card. Although a small number of top-notch experts are very intimidating, they are not enough. Although the few peak experts are very intimidating, it will be somewhat difficult to surround Xiaochen and the others. There will always be a chance to leave. Right now, the entire Yanwu dynasty's elite army has surrounded them. There is no chance for them to leave. Furthermore, there are the noble clan experts waiting outside. This is simply a flawless plan. No one expected the situation to turn around so quickly. Xiaochen and the 100 fairies of the pear garden could not escape in the blink of an eye. However, after thinking about it, they felt that this was only natural. After all, this was the imperial capital, Yan City. If not for the other princes restraining the Yan emperor, preventing him from making a move, this farce would have ended before it started. However, now that the first prince brought out his trump card, it was time for everything to end. Boom. However, something strange happened just at this moment. A terrifying killing chi suddenly appeared outside the city. That was the horrifying killing chi that could only be materialized when countless soldiers who had killed in hundreds of battles gathered together. The killing chi was like a strong snowstorm. The instant it arrived, the world seemed to turn into a cruel battlefield. A scarlet cloud streaked across the sky, looking like a sharp knife piercing through the sky and arriving in an instant. The person leading the group wore battle armor and rode a phoenix blood eagle king. He said, "Big brother, it is best not to go overboard with some things." More than 10,000 people rode phoenix blood eagles behind this person. They all showed no expression, looking like asuras that came out of purgatory. It's the Blood Eagle Army. Why did the 9th Prince's Blood Eagle Army suddenly appear? The Blood Eagle Army's horrifying killing chi spread out, forcing the God's Will Army to change their encirclement and retreat behind the first prince. Now, Xiaochen, Chu Chaoyan, and the 100 fairies of the pear garden stood in the middle of the 2 armies. The trump card that the first prince was so proud of instantly crumbled, vanishing without a trace. Wang Fei's calm expression immediately turned enraged. "Ninth brother, do you know what you are doing? Even you want to oppose me?" Wang Yan retorted calmly, "Big brother, I should be the one saying that to you. Do you know what you are doing? Since an outsider has the courage to stop this wedding, all the more I should step forward. It is time for this wedding to end." Wang Feilai's expression turned uncertain. As he looked at the Blood Eagle Army, he felt so angry that his chest heaved up and down. Previously, no matter what Xiaochen did, Wang Feilai did not fear it at all. This was because Wang Feilai had the trump card of the Divine Will Army. This army was made up of holy venerates. With the battle armor and the support of the dynasty's emperor's might, they could form battle formations. Even a peak sovereign emperor would have to retreat if they charged forward. However, now that Wang Yan appeared with the Blood Eagle Army, the situation immediately turned against Wang Feilai. Wang Feilai knew that many princes were waiting in the dark to see him make a fool of himself, not wanting his wedding to proceed normally. If this dragged on, when these people stepped forward like Lord Jiao, the wedding would be ruined. However, Wang Feilai could not think of a good solution right now. Wang Feilai still had several trump cards that he could use. However, this involved the Shuowu dynasty, the Black Lotus Church, and the Azure Lotus Church, so he could not bring them out in the open. "Big brother, how long are you going to remain stubborn? Just give up." Wang Yan advised again from the Phoenix Blood Eagle King's back. The entire Blood Eagle army took advantage of the situation to press forward. Who dares to take another step forward? However, just at this moment, a cold and indifferent voice suddenly rang out. A sword move appeared with this voice. The Blood Eagle army, which had just taken a step forward, was forced back. Several Phoenix Blood Eagles shrieked in shock as they were forced back by this sword move. One person and one sword forced back an army. A figure slowly descended from the sky and hovered in the air. As this figure stood in the air, he raised his eyebrows and looked at the Blood Eagle army. In that instant, several warriors on the Blood Eagle Kings felt a sword intent attack them. Blood leaked out of their mouths as they soared into the air and continuously retreated. Even the 9th Prince Wang Yan was no exception. With just one glance, this person nearly defeated the entire Blood Eagle army, reducing them to a sorry state. Who is this person? How can he be so strong? Such horrifying combat prowess completely surpassed everyone's understanding, so they all looked over. When everyone clearly saw the appearance of this person, they all turned pale, somewhat speechless. It was that person who had always existed in the legends of the imperial capital Yen City. To think that he appeared at this wedding and stood on the first prince's side. Haha! How mighty! Su Han-san, come and try attacking me. Just as the cultivators of the imperial capital Yen City were about to cry out in shock, a beggar walked out of the snowstorm and spoke with a smile as he looked at the sky. This call of Su Han-san scared many people out of their wits. Unexpectedly, someone dared to directly address the sword by its name. His tone was filled with mockery. Chapter 2260. How awe-inspiring! Su Han-san, come and try attacking me. The incredibly sloppy-looking beggar appeared out of nowhere in the rubble of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Then, he stood on a piece of rubble and looked up. No matter how one looked at it, such a person did not look like an expert. However, this beggar just stood up and smiled as he looked at the sword god in the sky. He directly addressed the sword god by name, Su Han-san. Who is Su Han-san? Probably every cultivator in the imperial capital Yen City had heard of his name. When he was very young, his elders had told him about his deeds over and over again. Su Han-san was the pride of the Yenwu dynasty, a living legend. His name resounded like thunder, but few people had seen him in person. However, the moment he appeared, he hugged his sword and raised his eyebrows, scaring away the Blood Eagle army. There was no need to guess his identity. Aside from the sword god, Su Han-san, no one else in the imperial capital Yen City possessed such strength. Many people had seen his portrait before. However, when they saw his true appearance, they did not dare to cry out, fearing that they would profane this person. This was especially so for the swordsmen present. They were already incredibly excited. Just seeing him once made their blood surge. Several people even knelt and worshipped him, all because he was the sword god, Su Han-san. Everyone thought that the first prince's wedding would be settled after the sword god appeared. Who could have imagined that a beggar would appear out of nowhere and call out the sword god's name in a carefree manner, not showing any fear? Who is this beggar? He even dares to call out the sword god's name. Is he tired of living? Damn it! He is simply profaning the sword god. Some people did not understand, and some were upset. However, Su Han-san did not make a move. He once said that no one dared to take a step forward. In that instant, no one dared to move. Su Han-san's gaze forced back the entire Blood Eagle army. However, when this beggar appeared, Su Han-san did not make a move. The strangeness of this immediately inspired speculation. At the top of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, Xiao Chen, who already despaired, immediately felt some hope when he saw the beggar appear. However, he found this inconceivable, too shocking. The other party was Su Han-san, the sword god Su Han-san. What gave the beggar the confidence to stand out? You are here to join in the excitement as well? However, something even more inconceivable happened. Su Han-san actually attacked the beggar. His tone was as if he was talking to someone of the same generation, and it instantly caused an uproar. This beggar was actually old friends with Su Hanshan. You can join in, but I can't. Hee hee, if we're talking about connections, I'm more involved than you. Originally, I didn't want to interfere in this matter, but since you've come out regardless of your status, it would be too heartless of me to not show myself. The beggar covered his face with his hands and combed his messy hair. He revealed a dirty face, but the smile on his face was clean and pure. It made people feel at ease, like a spring breeze caressing their faces. No one would have thought that this was the smile of a beggar. When Xiao Chen saw this scene, his heart immediately trembled, and his expression changed slightly. The smile. The first time he saw this beggar, he felt that this beggar's smile was somewhat familiar. It was exceptionally clean. But at that time, he didn't have time to think too much about it. Today, he saw that smile again in this kind of situation. A name immediately appeared in Xiao Chen's mind, and he could not help feeling shocked. You know who he is? Chu Chaoyan asked when he noticed the strange expression on Xiao Chen's face. Xiao Chen nodded. I know. If I'm not wrong, he is from the same place as you and me. The Kunlun realm. A bright light flashed in Chu Chaoyan's eyes as he looked at this beggar. He simply could not believe that this beggar was the person Xiao Chen mentioned. I couldn't defeat you 100 years ago, and I probably can't defeat you now either. What do you want? Speak. Su Hanshan said calmly with an indifferent expression. That might not be the case. I have not improved at all in the past 100 years. You can try drawing your sword. The beggar's smile remained the same as he said softly. The crowd immediately burst into an uproar. Many people were even more stunned by Su Hanshan's words. It turned out that Su Hanshan was not just an old acquaintance. The two even fought 100 years ago, and Su Hanin did not win. It's him. I know who he is. It's the Spring Snow Bladesman, Pan Huang. The bladesmen present connected Su Hanshan's words and guessed the beggar's identity. The Spring Snow Bladesman, Pan Huang. This was another legend, a bladesman whose name resounded like thunder but faded from everyone's sight long ago. Pan Huang's deeds were no less legendary than Su Hanshan's. Instead, he was even more legendary. Who could have imagined that the first prince's wedding would first cause the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden and the Azure Lotus Sword Immortal to fight? Now, it was even more exaggerated. Two legendary figures actually appeared at the same time. The clash between Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyan between the saber and the sword was about to happen in reality. Su Hanshan, the strongest person of the sword Dao, and Pan Huang, the strongest person of the saber Dao. Just thinking about the clash between the two excited everyone. However, everyone was very clear that Su Hanshan and Pan Huang would definitely not fight. Even if they did, they would not do it in the imperial capital, Yen City, with so many people watching. However, Pan Huang's words, "You can try drawing your sword," still filled everyone with anticipation. What if he really drew his sword? Su Hanshan stared at Pan Huang and said sullenly, "There is no need. Either I don't draw my sword, or once I do, even if it is life and death, victory will be decided." Pan Huang smiled faintly and said, "Su Hanin, in that case, there is indeed no need for you to draw your sword. Didn't you see the clash between the saber and the sword of the two little fellows earlier? What we are fighting for is not victory or defeat, not glory or disgrace, but the fate of the mortal world." Su Hanshan showed an indifferent expression. "You have your Tao and I have mine. In my heart, the sword will always reign supreme. My heart for the sword has never changed, not even for 1,000 years or 10,000 years." The beggar no longer tried to persuade Su Hanin. He said sullenly, "Very well. In that case, I won't speak nonsense with you. Neither of us need to make the decision for this wedding. Let her make the decision." Pan Huang pointed at headliner Ling Long, who was on the rainbow bridge in the sky. The first Prince Wang Fei's expression changed slightly as he said, "No way. This is my wedding. I cannot allow others to make the decision for me. Is it your place to speak? Not even if your father came." Scram. The beggar roared. This was the first time Xiao Chen saw the beggar, who had a frivolous smile. A saber light seemed to flash in the beggar's eyes. When the beggar swept his cold gaze across, the divine guard's army was struck by a saber and knocked back 50 kilometers. In that instant, a vast crowd surrounded Wang Fei. When he looked up, he saw that he was the only one left riding on the flame Qilin. The army that had been surrounding him a moment ago was swept away like trash. Fear flashed in Wang Fei's eyes. He wanted to check if he was injured or not. However, when he saw the beggar's gaze, he did not dare to act rashly. Su Hanshan remained expressionless, acting like he did not hear anything. After a while, he looked at Ling Long and said, "You make the decision." After obtaining Su Hanshan's approval, Ling Long did not give Wang Fei another look. She directly landed before Xiao Qin and Chu Chaoyin. Ling Long glanced at the veiled woman coldly before looking at Xiao Qin. Her voice trembled as she said, "Lord Xiao, that ice coffin in the sky." Xiao Qin did not say anything, only nodding silently. Boo! Ling Long immediately felt like she had been struck by lightning. Indeed, this was the worst possible outcome. Ling Long, listen to me. He is already dead. Don't overthink it. Since you are the one making the decision now, just agree to the first prince's request. In the future, when he ascends to the throne and becomes the Yan Emperor, the veiled woman grasped this opportunity, wanting to win Ling Long over and make the right decision for her. Bang! However, right after Ling Long spoke, a short sword flew out of her sleeve and pierced the veiled woman's mouth the moment she opened it. You promised me that you would protect his life. Ling Long's expression turned frosty as she looked at the veiled woman coldly, not showing any pity in her eyes. Xiao Qin looked at the veiled woman, who was already dead. Then, he moved the saber away from her neck and said, "Headliner Ling Long, my little martial nephew is already dead. However, that beggar uncle brought him an ice coffin to protect his soul and prevent it from scattering. It can extend his life. Perhaps he will wake up one day. I want to leave this place with him. Can you bring me away?" Ling Long sounded fatigued. There was no sorrow or pain in her eyes, but it made one's heart ache. "Sure. I'll get the golden crow to bring you away." Before everyone's eyes, headliner Ling Long soared into the sky and mounted the golden crow above the clouds. Then she left with the ice coffin. From start to end, Ling Long did not even look at Wang Fei. Wang Fei, who was on the fire Qilin, flushed. He felt like someone had slapped him swollen. To think that he could not even defeat a dead person. On the day of his wedding, a dead person snatched away his bride. This was definitely the greatest joke since the establishment of the Yanwu dynasty. Chapter 2261. The first prince watched helplessly as his bride rode away on the divine bird, the golden crow. At this moment, many princes snickered in their hearts. The first prince knew that his father would not appear to uphold justice for him after such a huge commotion. He also knew who was the one who had done this. His father doted on little 13th the most. He refused to believe that little 13th did not do something this time. The 8th prince probably put in a lot of effort as well. The imperial ancestral temple's imperial patriarch still did not arrive. Barring any surprises, little 13th prince must have done something. However, the one that enraged the first prince the most was the 9th prince. To think that the 9th prince Wang Yan directly led the Blood Eagle army to Yen City, standing out to oppose him. If not for the Blood Eagle army putting the first prince in the most dangerous situation, Su Hanshan would not have appeared. If Su Hanshan did not show up, that Pan Huang would not show up either. However, there were no ifs in this world. Everything had already happened and could not be undone. The Smiling Daughter Pavilion's pavilion master died, and headliner Ling Long chose to leave. Only Wang Yan remained in the vast rubble. He was like a joke, receiving everyone's pity and mockery. This wedding caused a huge commotion. Practically everyone in the world paid attention to it. Everyone knew about it. The entire imperial capital paid attention to it. The 100 feudal lords and 18 noble clans all came to offer their congratulations. Wang Yan showed off his luck, appearing awe-inspiring. However, everything changed now. Wang Yan got slapped in the face again and again. In the end, he could not even compete with a dead man. Ling Long chose to leave with Ling Yu's ice coffin, not even willing to look at Wang Yan. The country and beauty became nothing. Su Hanshan looked around. However, he did not look at the dispirited Wang Fei. Instead, his gaze fell on Su Yi. Whoosh! Su Hanshan's figure flashed, and he appeared before Su Yi. After some thought, he asked, "How have you been?" Su Yi trembled slightly. Unexpectedly, the godlike old ancestor of the Su clan, Su Hanshan, still remembered her. "I'm fine," Su Hanshan said calmly. "Your father has always missed you. Go back with you. My Su clan's bloodline flows in your veins. Your talent should not be wasted." Su Yi immediately felt angry in her heart. It turned out that he had taken a fancy to her talent. She immediately said in a sullen voice, "Thank you, clan ancestor, for your concern. In this lifetime, Su Yi will never return to the Su clan, much less meet that man who is worse than a beast." Seeing the undisguised disgust and hatred in Su Ye's eyes, Su Hanshan fell silent. He also knew about what had happened back then. However, a lady from a brothel would not have a good reputation. It would be better if Su Ye's father was not the family head. However, now that he had become the clan head, he definitely could not allow his mother to be the official wife anymore. Otherwise, how would the family head's face remain? Seeing Su Ye's attitude, Su Hanin did not try to persuade her any further. Instead, he simply said, "If you're willing, you can come back anytime you want." Upon seeing this, Pan Huang did not linger, leaving as well. With their current strength, they could practically come and go as they pleased in any forbidden area of the Great Thousand World. As for Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun, they did not have such strength, so it would be difficult for them to leave. The two leaped down from the top of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion and landed among the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden. After Xiao Chen and Su Yi nodded slightly, they arrived among the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden and stood before a woman holding a bamboo flute. Xiao Chen performed a cupped fist salute and said, "Many thanks, holy daughter, for coming to help. I am filled with endless gratitude." That was right. The woman playing the bamboo flute among the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden was the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter that Xiao Chen had sent a letter to. However, her face remained shrouded in a layer of fog, making others automatically overlook her. Furthermore, she hid among the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden, so she did not attract much attention. In fact, no one even knew about her. However, this was in line with the Holy Daughter's style. The Heavenly Fragrance Holy Land had always been neutral, not getting involved in any disputes. Coming to help was already the Holy Daughter's bottom line. Young Master Xiao is too polite. My Heavenly Fragrance owes you a debt of gratitude. How can I not come? The Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter smiled faintly. She clearly stood in front of Xiao Chen, but she gave off the feeling of being 500 kilometers away, as distant as that. The holy daughter gave off a natural sense of distance, preventing others from getting close. "Xiao Chen, the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarch's people are here," Su Yi said as she pointed to a group of black dots rapidly flying over from the distance. When Xiao Chen looked in the direction of Xiao Chen's finger, he saw the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs with extraordinary cultivations. Xiao Chen was not surprised by the appearance of this group of people. In fact, he even felt that they were a little late. Presumably, the prince, who was secretly helping, saw that the wedding had been destroyed. There was no need to continue helping to block the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs. Just let them come and cause trouble for Xiao Chen. So. In the blink of an eye, this group of people led by the Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor appeared before Xiao Chen and the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden. "Greetings, Patriarch." Xiao Chen cupped his hands and said, "Lord Xiao, how impressive. Come with me. You are the Heavenly Alliance's envoy inspector, so it is not convenient for me to kill you. I will discuss this matter with your Alliance Master before deciding how to punish you." The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor looked coldly at Xiao Chen, showing no expression on his face. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor did not give Xiao Chen a chance to explain, nor did he intend to waste his breath. Needless to say, after causing such a huge commotion, nearly tearing down half of Yen City, Xiao Chen had definitely caused a great disaster. No matter how good the reason was, there was no way to explain what happened before Xiao Chen. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor wanted to take down Xiao Chen, but Xiao Chen was not in the right. Even if he brought this matter to Hua Tianyang would not side with him. Xiao Chen looked around, hoping to see the beggar's figure. However, there was no trace of the beggar at all. If Pan Huang were here, the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs would not dare to ask. However, Pan Huang clearly did not want to care about this matter. Since Su Hanshan left, the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs left as well. Count me in. If you want to take him away, then take me away, Xiao Chen said as he stepped forward. Chu Chaoyun smiled faintly and stepped forward. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor focused his gaze on Chu Chaoyun. Then, he said, I advise you not to be a busybody. We are not seeking trouble for you on account of the Universe Origin sect. Don't go overboard. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's sect master was well aware of Chu Chaoyun's identity and background. He was a Taoist of the Universe Origin sect. Although he was an accomplice to Xiao Chen, he was not the mastermind. Thus, he didn't want to ask too much about it. However, he didn't expect the other party to take the initiative to interfere. Count me in too. A petite figure flashed and appeared beside Xiao Chen. It was Ao Jiao, who had arrived with the Golden Crow. Sun Goddess. Senior, there is indeed nothing wrong with taking young Master Xiao away. However, since he was going to be punished, it had to be fair and just. The first prince killed young Master Zhao's martial nephew for no reason. He had to pay with his life. If young Master Xiao did not die, today's matter would not have happened. The Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter said softly as she walked over while holding her flute. Who are you? The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor was enraged. Each of Xiao Chen's friends had a greater background than the last. First, it was the Universe Origin sect's Taoist, Chu Chaoyun. Then it was the Sun Goddess. Now, a mysterious woman appeared from somewhere. When the Imperial Ancestor took a few more glances and recognized the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter, his expression changed slightly. To think that it was the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter. I was blind earlier and was too rash. I did not recognize this lady as the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor had no choice but to suppress his anger and apologize while holding back his anger. It's fine. However, I still stand by what I said earlier. Young Master Xiao must have committed a grave mistake. There is no need to explain. However, this prince killed someone for no reason. We still have to give him a proper explanation. Otherwise, if we end up with an unfair punishment, that would be an even bigger joke. The Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter stood up as well. However, she was smarter than Chu Chaoyun and Ao Jiao. From the start to the end, she kept insisting that Wang Fei killed someone, not letting go. The people who stood up one after another startled the cultivators watching from all around Yen City. They had not expected Xiao Chen to have so many friends. Furthermore, each of them had a deep background. What was even more shocking was that even the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter appeared. Bullshit. This prince did not kill Ling Yu. That person committed suicide. What does that have to do with me? Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter, although you are the holy daughter, you are just a woman in my dynasty. You speak without thinking and malign this prince. That is a heavy crime. The first prince Wang Fei said in exasperation. The first prince had already embarrassed himself. At this point, if he still could not take down Xiao Chen, it would be like having his left cheek slapped. It meant that after the left side of his face was slapped, the right side of his face was going to be slapped again. He couldn't stand it. The Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter said coldly, Is that so? In that case, do you dare to swear that if Ling Yu's death has anything to do with you, you will give up on entering the ancient Yen Emperor tomb? Wang Fei felt stifled. How could he dare to make such a vow? He said angrily, Humph. I can't be bothered to speak nonsense with you. Imperial Ancestor, take down this brat. Disrupting the prince's wedding is equivalent to insulting the royal clan's dignity. He deserves death. May the Lord Buddha show mercy. This humble monk, Yen Qin, is here on my master's orders to capture Xiao Qin and bring him back to the hidden spirit temple for punishment. Just as the imperial ancestral temple's imperial ancestor hesitated and the two sides entered a stalemate, a Buddhist proclamation rang out in the air. A Buddhist name rang out from nowhere, and a youthful monk turned into a beam of silver light and descended from the sky. Chapter 2262. This humble monk's dharma name is Yen Qin. On my master's orders, I am here to bring Xiao Qin back to the hidden spirit temple to receive punishment. The instant the dharma name rang out, a silver light tore through the sky. The light descended together with the voice. It was a young monk with red lips, white teeth, bright eyes, and a handsome appearance. He still looked like a child. This was clearly a young novice monk, but he addressed himself as a humble monk. This was a rather comical scene. Unfortunately, this little monk was simply too handsome. He gave off a rather adorable feeling. The imperial ancestral temple's imperial ancestor frowned and said, "Little monk, this is not a place you should be. Quickly leave." Yen Qin said gravely, "Greetings, imperial ancestor. This is the abbot's personal token, and this is my master's token, Su Yun's. Imperial ancestor, please take a look." One was from the hidden spirit temple's abbot, and the other was from the venerable Su Yun. Imperial ancestor. Anxiety flashed in the first Prince Wang Fei's eyes as he tried to advise the imperial ancestor not to care too much and directly take down Xiao Qin. Don't be impatient. Suspicion flashed in the imperial ancestral temple's imperial ancestor's eyes as he received the two tokens. After a while, his expression changed drastically. The abbot's personal token stated that Xiao Qin caused havoc in Yen City at the foot of the Spirit Mountain, affecting several temples and destroying incense offerings. His crimes were unpardonable. Hence, the imperial ancestor sent Yen Qin to capture Xiao Qin and bring him back to the temple for punishment, cleansing his heart and cleansing his sins. The other token was the venerable Su Yun's personal token, proving that the little monk's identity was real and that he was his disciple. The two tokens complemented each other. They were absolutely authentic and could not be wrong. The imperial ancestral temple's imperial ancestor wanted to find some mistakes but could not find any, so he could only return the token helplessly. Xiao Qin, you led the crowd to cause trouble in Yen City, destroying the Buddhist sect temples and injuring innocent pilgrims. You have committed grave crimes. On orders from my master, I have to capture you and bring you back to atone for your crimes. Yen Qin received the token and walked over to Xiao Qin with a grave expression. Then he asked, "Do you admit to your crimes?" The bystanders felt somewhat embarrassed. Xiao Qin had caused such a huge commotion, nearly destroying half of Yen City. Many of the first prince's subordinates had died. Finally, the hidden spirit temple wanted to take Xiao Qin away for destroying the temple and injuring pilgrims. On the surface, it looked like he wanted to punish Xiao Qin. In reality, he was clearly trying to absolve Xiao Qin. Xiao Qin indeed should not have destroyed the temple. After being taken away by the imperial ancestral temple's imperial ancestor, who knew if Xiao Qin could return, the little monk appeared at the right time. Naturally, Xiao Qin had no reason to reject this favor. Pa! Yen Qin leaped up and ferociously smacked Xiao Qin's head. He said angrily, "There is no sincerity at all. You are really sinful." The slap stunned Xiao Qin somewhat. Then, Yen Qin quickly took him away, leaving behind a group of dumbfounded people. The sectarian Xiao is Yen Qin. Yen Qin. Yen Qin. Yen King. Only then did everyone startle to their senses. Then, they recalled the silver light that appeared when the little monk appeared. It really was the little demonic monk Silver Saber. Imperial ancestor, there might be a trap. That little demonic monk Silver Saber has a bad reputation and is not well liked in the temple. How could the abbot hand such an important matter to him? The first Prince Wang Fei said seriously as a brilliant light flickered in his eyes. The imperial ancestral temple's imperial ancestor reacted and looked around. However, Xiao Chen and the little monk were nowhere to be seen. Outside the city, put, 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 Xiao Chen continuously smacked the little monk's bald head. Then he said softly, "You are so impudent. To think that you dare to hit Big Brother in front of everyone. Ouch. Big Brother, stop hitting me." The little monk held his head with both hands as he dodged left and right, crying out in pain. Xiao Chen withdrew his hand and said, "Your token should be fake. Given how you are in such a rush to leave, it seems." Yan Chen smiled and said, "The token is indeed fake. However, the part about destroying the temple and harming the devotees is just something I made up. Master only wanted to meet you, so he got me to invite you over. Before I left the mountain, I did not know that you caused such a huge disaster. Hence, I could only make up a reason to bring you away." Xiao Chen laughed hoarsely. "You are rather smart. Let's go. I also want to take a look at the Hidden Spirit Temple. The top holy land of the Buddhist sects, the Hidden Spirit Temple, ruled over all the Buddhist sects in the world." Xiao Chen had a fate with Buddhism. This was especially so since Xiao Chen cultivated the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique, a Buddhist sect forbidden technique. Perhaps he could make some breakthroughs in the Hidden Spirit Temple. The two did not dare to linger for too long. They quickly rushed to Spirit Vulture Mountain outside Yen City. There were many temples on Spirit Vulture Mountain, giving off a Buddhist light. There were many devotees, all of them grand and magnificent. Even though such a huge commotion happened in the imperial capital, Yen City, there was still an endless stream of devotees. Among them, there were ordinary mortals as well as martial artists with varying cultivation levels. There were both strong and weak people. Everyone was different. The only thing they had in common was a pious heart to Buddha. At the foot of the mountain, Xiao Chen looked at this sacred mountain from a distance. He felt the vast and deep power of faith contained in the mountain. That was a kind of power that was as vast as the sea, containing countless inheritances and opportunities. The endless stream of devotees accumulated the power of faith. The Buddha accepted the power of faith and enjoyed the incense. Then, it passed on to the devotees, forming an orderly cycle. This cycle repeated endlessly, accumulating endlessly. This resulted in the scene that Xiao Chen saw right now, vast and unfathomable. The sea of faith formed by the incense felt as weak and insignificant as an ant in the depths of it. Of course, ordinary people could not sense the profoundness of this. What they directly felt was the Buddhist light supporting them, calming their bodies and minds, making them even more pious. After walking along the mountain path for a while, Xiao Chen saw many temples along the way. These temples were hidden in the forest, burning incense and giving off a dense Buddhist light. This made Spirit Vulture Mountain look like it was bathed in Buddhist light. Walking in it gave off a wondrous feeling of entering a place of bliss. The colossal golden body of the Kasyapa Buddha stood at the summit of the mountain. A bright light shone behind it, guiding all the devotees down the mountain. Behind the Kasyapa Buddha were indistinct bodhisattvas and arhats. They looked dignified and divine, not to be profaned. I heard that the Hidden Spirit Temple is not among these mountains. Even if ordinary people searched the entire mountain range, they would not be able to find it. In that case, is it in the Buddhist light of the Kasyapa Buddha? Xiao Chen guessed that the Hidden Spirit Temple might be in the secret realm of the Buddhist light behind the Kasyapa Buddha. One needed a certain identity to enter. Big Brother, you guessed wrong. The Hidden Spirit Temple is not behind the Kasyapa Buddha, nor is it in a secret realm. It is in this forest. Come with me. The little monk smiled mysteriously and led Xiao Chen into a secluded path. Although the path was hidden, one could discover it if one paid attention. The mountain path had not been maintained for a long time, looking like it had been there for many years. Even though the sky was already dark on the mountain path, it was still as bright as day when illuminated by the Buddhist light. After entering this ancient path, it was like entering another world. It was cold, desolate, and dark, but it seemed even more real. Beside the desolate ancient road, green pine trees were planted, swaying slightly in the wind. White moonlight sprinkled on the path. Aside from that, there was no other illumination. Xiao Chen experienced a profound state. However, he felt suspicious. Could the hidden spirit temple be at the end of this ancient path? If that was the case, it would be rather simple. Although this place was desolate, if a believer wanted to look for it, they would definitely be able to find it. This was because there was no illusion formation or secret realm. It was just a simple ancient path filled with pine trees. Just as Xiao Chen felt suspicious, a faint fragrance wafted over. Raising his head, he saw an ordinary-looking old temple 10 miles ahead of him. A few osmanthus trees grew in front of the temple. Under the white moonlight, the osmanthus flowers looked like they were bathed in a faint layer of silk. From 5 kilometers away, Xiao Chen could clearly see the words, Hidden Spirit Temple, written on the temple door. It really is the Hidden Spirit Temple. Surprise flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes as he muttered to himself, feeling somewhat incredulous. The pine trees face the ancient path, and the white moon covers the cold mountain. This winding path leads to the Hidden Spirit Temple. Suddenly, a soft voice came from behind. Xiao Chen turned his head and saw a middle-aged man holding a folding fan with a sword hanging at his waist. This person walked with a majestic gait and extraordinary air. A sovereign's aura was hidden on his face. As he slowly approached, an overwhelming pressure pressed down. This person did not purposely hide this aura. Just as Xiao Chen was about to use his dragon might to block, he discovered that the aura had already silently enveloped him. However, he did not feel any discomfort. Instead, it felt strangely harmonious. It was like he was in this aura. Young man, there is no need to doubt. This is the genuine Hidden Spirit Temple. Young man, there is no need to doubt. This is the genuine Hidden Spirit Temple, the person who arrived said softly as he flung open his folding fan. Xiao Chen asked cautiously, which expert of the royal clan are you? This person's strength was unfathomable. His sovereign's might was much stronger than that of the many princes. Xiao Chen had just caused a huge commotion in Yen City and got into a conflict with the royal clan's people. When he suddenly saw a royal clan expert, he could not help but be cautious. Who are you? Are you the Heavenly Alliance's Xiao Chen? The Dragon Race's Xiao Chen? Or is it the Bladesman Xiao Chen who raged because of my martial nephew? The middle-aged man smiled faintly and countered with a question. While Xiao Chen hesitated, the middle-aged man smiled and said, So, there is no need to mind who I am. Right now, we are just visitors heading to the Hidden Spirit Temple. After saying that, the middle-aged man headed straight for the temple without waiting for Xiao Chen's reply. As Xiao Chen looked at this person's back, he muttered, How strong! He gives the feeling that he is undefeatable. Isn't that obvious? He is the current Yen Emperor. Even foe gods might not be a match for him in the Yenwu dynasty's territory. What more, big brother? The little monk said in disdain. This startled Xiao Chen. Only now did he recall that the sword at that person's waist was exactly the same as the Yen imperial sword that appeared in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion back then. Chapter 2263. The Yen Emperor. The middle-aged man who just walked over was actually the current emperor of the Yenwu dynasty. The doubts in Xiao Chen's heart cleared up. No wonder this person's sovereign's aura was 10 times, even 100 times, stronger than that of the prince's. No wonder this person's aura did not feel any discomfort after containing Xiao Chen. Everything under the sky belonged to the emperor. As long as one was in the Yenwu dynasty, it was like one was in the other party's small world at all times. Furthermore, this small world had been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years. The 108 feudal lords, 3,000 noble clans, hundreds of sects, and the various factions attached to it would all invisibly increase the dynasty's luck and strength. Even Xiao Chen himself would invisibly strengthen the dynasty's accumulations when he was in it. However, it was too insignificant and negligible. However, that might not be the case after a long time. Now that Xiao Chen's old doubts were gone, new doubts arose. Earlier, Xiao Chen nearly tore down a small portion of the imperial capital and caused a commotion at his son's wedding, turning him into a joke before the world. To think that the old man still had the leisure to come to this hidden spirit temple to offer incense and pray to Buddha. Even when the old man saw Xiao Qin, he did not show any rage or murderous intent. Xiao Qin could not figure out what he was thinking. Strange, Xiao Qin muttered in his heart, feeling extremely confused. Come on, let's go. Don't just stand there like a fool. Even if he is the current Yen Emperor, he will not dare to do anything to you in this hidden spirit temple. Don't worry. The little monk quickly consoled Xiao Qin, thinking that he feared the Yen Emperor and did not dare to climb the mountain. Xiao Qin did not worry about his safety in the hidden spirit temple. He just felt some doubts, so he did not explain and let Yen Qin continue leading the way. After a while, they traveled 5 kilometers in an instant. The fragrance from before drifted over with the wind, faintly drifting over. When they arrived before the temple, the moonlight illuminated the osmanthus tree. However, they could not smell any osmanthus fragrance. The ancient road in the pine forest fills the cold mountain with white snow. The winding path leads to the hidden spirit temple. Xiao Qin recited the poem that the Yen Emperor recited. As he looked at the simple signboard in front of the temple, he still felt some disbelief. To think that this place was the hidden spirit temple. Not to mention the majestic temples on the mountain, even the guest halls at the foot of the mountain were much better than this hidden spirit temple. Return to the natural state? Xiao Qin's brows furrowed slightly. Returning to one's true nature was about being casual and natural. Deliberately making it so simple and crude would instead seem pretentious. Given the hidden spirit temple's status and strength, a grand and imposing temple made it seem more natural. Isn't this hidden spirit temple very hard to find? Why did the other pilgrims say that they couldn't find it anywhere? Could it be that this is some kind of forbidden area? Xiao Qin asked, unable to suppress the doubts in his heart. The little monk smiled faintly and said softly, "This place is really not a forbidden area. When ordinary worshippers come in, the senior and junior brothers in the temple will also treat them with courtesy." He explained the Buddha's scriptures, served tea, and was very polite. However, do you think that these people really think that this is the hidden spirit temple? They probably just think that it is a temple with the same name. Don't overthink. I know you are very disappointed. However, this is really the hidden spirit temple. I grew up here just like my family. I won't lie to you. Yen Chen's youthful face filled with smiles. He probably felt happy to be able to bring Xiao Qin to his home as a guest. As Yen Qin entered the temple, other monks occasionally passed by. When these monks saw Yen Qin, they would respectfully greet him as little martial granduncle before quickly leaving. These junior brothers and senior brothers must have already experienced the little demonic monk Silver Saber's bad luck. Yen Qin felt somewhat embarrassed. Every time this happened, he would laugh loudly and quickly introduce the temple to Xiao Qin, changing the topic. Void Cloud Hall? Xiao Qin thought to himself when he saw the words on the courtyard wall after arriving at a backyard near the mountain. It is clearly a courtyard, but it is written as a hall. This is rather interesting. Xiao Qin thought about how grand and majestic the Heaven Dragon Hall was. This courtyard before him could not compare at all. My master stays here. Come, I'll bring you in. When Xiao Qin entered the courtyard, the ground was covered in fallen leaves. When he stepped on them, they rustled like he was walking on snow. Although the courtyard was simple and crude, it wasn't small. Just the adjacent wing rooms alone numbered quite a few. 2 people were currently playing Go under an old tree in the courtyard. One of them carried a sword. His facial features were sharp like they were carved by a knife. He looked extraordinarily handsome and gave off an extraordinary air. When Xiao Qin looked carefully, he felt startled. Isn't this Su Han's Han, whom I just met? The person across from Su Han's Han wore embroidered robes. His sleeves looked as gaudy as a skirt. The skin on this person's face was smooth and tender, and his exquisite facial features formed a handsome face. However, this person did not give off a distant feeling. Instead, he appeared very gentle. Coupled with that smooth and tender face, he gave off a surprisingly gentle feeling. This person was currently hesitating, frowning slightly, not knowing where to place his ghost stone. Hey, why does this person feel somewhat familiar? However, I cannot recall where. As Xiao Chen pondered, that person raised his head and looked at Xiao Chen. Then, his frown relaxed, and his eyes narrowed as he revealed a smile. In that instant, it felt like winter had passed, and spring arrived quietly. A smile contains spring, but this spring is not that spring. It was a gentle spring breeze that melted the ice and snow. Hundreds of flowers bloomed in the spring breeze. Xiao Chen was stunned on the spot. His heart felt like it was in the wilderness. 10,000 horses were galloping and whistling past. It was like heavenly thunder rolling endlessly. Psst. Uncle Beggar? No, this is the spring snowbladesman, Pan Huang. These were two completely different styles. What was even more inconceivable was that the two seemed to have arrived at the hidden spirit temple one after the other. Little brother Xiao Chen, unexpectedly, you also came to the hidden spirit temple. When Pan Huang saw Xiao Chen, his eyes lit up, and he prepared to walk over. But just as he was about to get up, Su Hanshan's sword landed on his shoulder, forcing him back down. Hurry up and make your move. I want to have a better view. If you want to give up, admit defeat first. Su Hanshan said indifferently with a calm expression. Xiao Chen felt that the atmosphere was a little awkward and didn't know how to deal with it. Who are the two of you? Why are you in my master's courtyard? This is not a place where visitors can enter. Quickly leave. Quickly leave. Doubt flashed in the little monk's eyes. As he looked at these two strangers, confusion flashed in his eyes. The little monk immediately walked over with large strides, preparing to chase them away. When Su Hanshan and Pan Huang saw the little monk walk over, shock flashed in their eyes. Su Hanshan carefully put away his sword and gently leaped up. Before the little monk could approach, he landed on the wall. Pan Huang's figure flashed, appearing like he teleported to the wall. The two seemed to fear this little monk somewhat. It was like Pan Huang could see the bad luck the two carried and did not dare to touch him. What a fast movement technique! Yan Chen's eyes lit up as he continued to give chase. Don't be rude. Xiao Chen was about to remind Yan Chen when a shout stopped him. It was Venerable Su Yun. Xiao Chen had met Venerable Su Yun once at the Soaring Dragon Marquis's residence. The two could be considered to have met before. Master! Yan Chen leaped up and landed before Venerable Su Yun. Then he pointed at Su Hanshan and Pan Huang and asked, Who are these two? They are the abbot's honored guests. They are here to rest for a while. You startled them. Ah, Venerable Su Yun is joking. It can't be considered startling. Is this that child from back then? With one look, he truly lives up to his reputation. Pan Huang and Su Hanshan had already landed again. As they looked at Yan Chen, they showed curious expressions. That's good then. Benefactors, please go about your business first. I have to entertain Benefactor Xiao. After some pleasantries, Venerable Su Yun led Xiao Chen into a tea room in the hall. Then, Venerable Su Yun personally brewed tea. Benefactor Xiao, how have you been? Looking at the time, it has been 10 years since we last met. Venerable Su Yun smiled softly as he served a cup of brewed tea. After receiving the teacup, Xiao Chen did not rush to taste it. After some thought, he said, Many thanks for Venerable's help this time. Otherwise, we would have been in trouble. Since Su Hanshan and Pan Huang were both here, Venerable Su Yun was not as ignorant as the little monk claimed. You are too polite. However, since you are already here, you should stay in this hidden spirit temple for a few days. Even without this matter, I would like to invite Benefactor Xiao to stay for a few days. Venerable Su Yun smiled faintly as he spoke unhurriedly. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. The other party should have other intentions. However, since Ranwei said so, he would not ask further. At the same time, in the hidden spirit temple's main hall, after the Yen Emperor offered incense alone, he looked at the Kasayapa Buddha image. Then, he picked up a bamboo lot and asked, Is my lot good or bad? Whether the Yen Emperor was willing or not, the result of the lot would implicate the entire Yenwu dynasty. It was unavoidable. The hidden spirit temple's abbot, Su Yi, walked out from the side and received the bamboo lot. After a while, he sighed softly, the worst lot. Chapter 2264. The worst draw? The Yen Emperor's elegant face changed slightly as he said softly, "Venerable, you are not joking, right? The worst draw. My Yenwu dynasty is flourishing with luck. For the past 500 years, I have worked day and night to expand my territory. Since I ascended to the throne, I have not lost a single inch of my territory. I even subdued several outer region great realms that the Shuawu dynasty controlled. The dynasty's luck fell to rock bottom in my hands, then returned to its peak. Now, everything is peaceful. How can there be such a thing as the worst draw?" Since the Yen Emperor came to the temple to draw lots, he had to be planning the nation's luck. From the moment he ascended to the throne, his fate had become tightly tied to the Yenwu dynasty. The Yen Emperor's tone contained heavy dissatisfaction and some doubt. Venerable Su Yi said calmly, "May the Lord Buddha show mercy. A monk does not lie. Benefactor Wang, you took time out of your busy schedule to come here alone to offer incense and draw lots. I believe you must have sensed something. As the current Yen Emperor, you already come into contact with the Supreme Heavenly Tao. Your intuition is right." The Yen Emperor's expression turned grave. After some thought, he asked, "How severe is this bad draw?" Seeing nothing, Abbot Suyi pressed his palms together and murmured softly. "Seeing nothing?" The Yen Emperor muttered to himself. Then, his expression changed drastically. "Seeing nothing? Does this mean that the entire dynasty is going to be destroyed?" However, in the blink of an eye, he felt that this was somewhat impossible. The dynasty was flourishing now, with deep accumulations. If there was a great calamity, even if the dynasty's luck was damaged, it should not fall. However, when the Yen Emperor thought about how unsettled he had been for the past year, the shadow in his heart hard to erase. At the Yen Emperor's cultivation, he had the power of the dynasty's luck. His intuition for the heavenly Tao and fate was already very sharp. Such a situation could not have happened for no reason. However, the Yen Emperor could not accept the dynasty's destruction. The Yen Emperor's expression immediately changed, appearing conflicted. "Venerable, is there a way to resolve this?" A bright light flickered in the Yen Emperor's eyes as he revealed a hopeful expression. Abbot Suyi shook his head and said, "Fate rises and falls. The cycle never ends. Everything in the world is destined. This is not your fault. The cause was planted 100,000 years ago. Then, someone forcefully stopped it 50,000 years ago. It is impossible for someone to stop it a second time." The Yen Emperor felt stunned when he heard that. He did not believe it, feeling that the other party was just brushing him off. 100,000 years was too far away. What time was that? That was still the era when the Black Dragon King wreaked havoc. How could the Yenwu dynasty's fate be decided 100,000 years ago? He stared at the other party and said, "Grandmaster, are you dissatisfied with some of the elders of the imperial family? Is that why you are unwilling to say more? In the past few years, I've actually been quite dissatisfied with the elders in the clan. In the past, I was restricted by the throne and couldn't do many things. Now that I'm about to abdicate, I can do whatever I want before I leave." Many of the older generation experts of the royal clan were dissatisfied with the Hidden Spirit Temple. They felt that they were always controlled by others. The Hidden Spirit Temple had deep accumulations, but the royal clan could not control it. They had tried to infiltrate it several times, but they had failed. Hence, the royal clan's older generation cultivators let the Pleasure Quarter Alliance grow, using it to keep the Hidden Spirit Temple in check. Needless to say, this strategy was very effective. In the past few thousand years, the influence of the Buddhist sects on the Hidden Spirit Temple had decreased significantly. In the past, when Buddhism was at its peak, even the heir to the throne had to submit to Buddhism, requiring the Hidden Spirit Temple to recommend him. Now, although the Hidden Spirit Temple's influence was still significant, it could no longer compare to its peak. The Yenwu dynasty's royal clan was practically independent, unlike the Tianwu dynasty and the Shenwu dynasty, which were controlled by the Universe Origin sect and the Profound Heaven Holy Land. The Yen Emperor's words hinted to Abbot Suyi that as long as he was willing to help the Yenwu dynasty clear this calamity, the Yenwu dynasty would be able to return the Buddhist sects to their peak. It could allow the Buddhist sects to return to their peak. This was a huge temptation. Abbot Su Yi shook his head and said, "The cause and effect from 100,000 years ago was already set. Benefactor, there is no need to feel so conflicted. No one can avoid this calamity. The Yenwu dynasty cannot avoid it, the hidden spirit temple cannot avoid it, and the world cannot avoid it either. The cycle of fate never ends. What does the Yenwu dynasty count for before the world? Just treat it normally." The Yen emperor felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He was stunned. He understood what Abbot Su Yi meant. The Yen emperor also knew that the cause and effect were set 100,000 years ago. Then, someone forcefully stopped it 50,000 years ago. Now no one could stop it. What was going on? I understand. Goodbye. The Yen emperor performed a cupped fist salute and took his leave. Before he left, he looked at the worst lot in his hand. However, he did not return it, keeping it with him. As the abbot watched the Yen emperor leave, he sighed softly and withdrew silently. Inside the hall, the golden image of the Kasyapa Buddha shone brightly with a smile on its face. It was like it had seen through everything and was detached from it. Naturally, Shaochen did not know what happened here. After Shaochen tasted tea with Venerable Su Yun, he saw that Pan Huang was still under the tree. Before Pan Huang could play the ghost stone in his hand, sword god Su Hanshan was nowhere to be seen. Su Hanshan probably could not stand Pan Huang's shamelessness and could not be bothered to play anymore. Without the sword god around, it was much easier for Shaochen to face Pan Huang. Without any hesitation, Shaochen walked over with large strides. "Little brother Shaochen, you came at a good time. Help me see if this game can continue." When Pan Huang saw Shaochen, he invited him to sit down with a smile. This form of address scared Shaochen half to death. In the past, when he was still a beggar uncle, he naturally didn't feel uncomfortable calling him that. However, now that he knew that the other party was Pan Huang, how could Shaochen dare to accept this form of address? In the Kunlun realm, Shaochen had received the Saber Sovereign Medallion. It was also because of the Saber Sovereign Medallion that he comprehended the Saber Tao. Without this Saber Sovereign Medallion, it would be nearly impossible for him to surpass Prime and leave the Kunlun realm. Pan Huang was like Shaochen's ancestral master. It was truly frightening for such a person to call Shaochen little brother. "Senior, please don't call me that. I really don't deserve it. Actually, I am also from the Kunlun realm." Senior Pan Huang should recognize this Saber Sovereign Medallion. After Shaochen spoke, he took out the Saber Sovereign Medallion. When Pan Huang saw the Saber Sovereign Medallion, he did not feel surprised. He smiled faintly and said, "As you wish. However, I do not like others calling me senior. However, given your character, I believe that you will feel uncomfortable calling me big brother as well. I already felt the Saber Sovereign Medallion in your hand long ago. I almost forgot about it." After receiving the Saber Sovereign Medallion, Pan Huang revealed a reminiscing expression in his eyes. After some thought, he said, "Back then, it was really hot-blooded. For so many years. Nearly all the people I met from the Kunlun realm are still alive. It seems like you are the only one who obtained my fortuitous encounter and walked out of the Kunlun realm. Senior, what exactly is the relationship between you and my martial nephew?" Shaochen asked out of curiosity. At the mention of Lingyu, some regret flashed in Pan Huang's eyes. He said sullenly, "I have been roaming the world for the past few years. A few years ago, I accidentally saved him in a forbidden land. I heard that he was Yi Zifeng's disciple, so I came to Yen City with him, intending to protect him. Unexpectedly, such a thing happened after I left for a while. This child is really unfortunate. It turned out that it was not that complicated. The reason was actually so simple." At the mention of Lingyu, Shaochen could not help feeling sad in his heart. However, headliner Ling Long's final decision still gave Shaochen some comfort. At the very least, it proved that bringing Lingyu to the Soaring Dragon Great Realm back then was not wrong. He did not love the wrong person. "Do you know why the Hidden Spirit Temple's people sought you out?" Since Lingyu's topic was somewhat heavy, Pan Huang changed the topic after returning the Saber Sovereign Medallion to Shaochen. Shaochen shook his head and said, I feel that Venerable Su Yun has something else to say. However, I do not know what the deeper meaning is. Pan Huang smiled and said, They probably want the old abbot to tell you that they sought you out for the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. The ancient Yen Emperor tomb? However, I already promised the 9th prince. Could they be preparing to support the 9th prince's ascension to the throne? Xiao Chen asked, confusion flashing in his eyes. No, the hidden spirit temple does not care who becomes the next Yen emperor. They only care about the ethereal immortal palace. In reality, even if the Yenwu dynasty is destroyed, the hidden spirit temple will not care too much, Pan Huang explained softly. However, this time, we have to pay attention to it. To think that the first prince allied with the Azure Lotus Church. If the ethereal immortal palace really appears and the wings of time lands in the Azure Lotus Church's hands, the hidden spirit temple will not be able to sit still. A brilliant light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. After some thought, he said, So, they want to work with me at the very least, to prevent the wings of time from landing in the Azure Lotus Church's hands? Smart, Pan Huang praised softly with a faint smile. Chapter 2265. Xiao Chen thought about Pan Huang's words. If the hidden spirit temple invited him for a chat because of the ancient Yen Emperor tomb, then what about Yuan Zhen? What about Yuan Zhen? If Xiao Chen recalled correctly, Yuan Zhen also had an ethereal immortal palace key. Furthermore, he was the strongest true inheritor of the hidden spirit temple. Could it be that they did not know that Yuan Zhen already had an ethereal immortal palace key? Strange. I should wait for the abbot to come before asking. Setting this matter aside for now, Xiao Chen asked, Senior, how much do you know about the ancient Yen Emperor tomb? Pan Huang scratched his head and replied after some thought, Let me think. I entered the ancient Yen Emperor tomb once. However, that was a long time ago. The ancient Yen Emperor tomb is a secret realm of the royal clan. It gathers the luck of the entire Yenwu dynasty. The entire dynasty's accumulations are gathered here. There are many inheritance treasure troves that are opened only during the succession race. If I recall correctly, every prince has a quota for the succession race. They can bring their guests in to help them fight for luck and become emperor. However, these guests are not allowed to be older than 500 years old. Aside from that, there are no other requirements. Finding this strange, Xiao Chen asked, Not allowed to be older than 500 years old? Why is that? Pan Huang smiled and said, Just think about it. There are inheritance treasuries everywhere. What if an overly strong old monster comes? What if an overly strong old monster came and wiped out all the inheritances? If he wanted to kill, he could kill all the princes. Then the entire dynasty would have no successor. Xiao Chen understood. The human heart was unfathomable. It was necessary to make such a rule. However, the intensity of the competition in there is flabbergasting. Everyone knows the benefits of the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. Every time the succession race takes place, all the experts under 500 years old of the Great Thousand Realms, or rather, the entire martial epic, gather in Yen City to fight for these few slots. The various noble clans and sects of the dynasty have been making preparations long ago, focusing on nurturing talents under 500 years old. Even if the prince they support does not become the crown prince, they can take away the inheritances they obtain in there. The ambitious princes with high statuses visit everywhere, searching for experts throughout the entire martial epic. It can be expected that every prince's retainer is definitely an expert among experts. Xiao Chen was slightly startled. He had long heard that the competition for the crown prince position was very intense. A sovereign emperor who would stir up the entire martial epic. Now, it looked like it was true. As Pan Huang said, the sovereign emperors who could get a spot would probably all have a powerful secret art. Pan Huang paused for a moment before smiling. What are your thoughts on the ancient Yen Emperor tomb? Yeah, what do you think? Xiao Chen said after some thought. I'm not very interested in the other inheritance treasure troves, but I won't despise them either. After all, no one would complain about having too many heavenly treasures, but the main focus would still be on the misty immortal palace. Pan Huang said indifferently, The ethereal immortal palace's prophecies have never been accurate. I once chased after it twice but returned empty-handed. Senior, are you also interested in the Misty Palace? Of course. The Wings of Time was the only transcendent grade soul tool in the current martial epic. Which foe god would not care about it? However, I'm not interested now. Not to mention the accuracy of the prophecies, it would be impossible for me to gather all 7 ethereal immortal palace keys, especially the inheritance key. Then, why is the hidden spirit temple so nervous? It's better to be safe than sorry. Pan Huang raised his eyebrows and looked behind Xiaochen. Then he said, "The abbot is here." When Xiaochen looked back, he saw 3 old monks outside the courtyard. Their cultivations were incredibly horrifying, unfathomable. One of the 3 old monks wore a golden kasaya and held a Buddhist monk staff. If there were no surprises, this would be the Hidden Spirit Temple's abbot Su Yi. The one on the left was Su Yun. The one on the right was an old man that Xiaochen did not recognize, looking at him with some hostility. Xiaochen did not know where this hostility came from. He had never met these people before. Benefactor Xiao, this is senior brother abbot. This is this old monk's junior brother, Su Ming. Venerable Su Yun stepped forward and introduced the two to Xiaochen. You guys talk first. I'll take my leave. Pan Huang stood up and smiled faintly. Before he left, he sent a voice projection to Xiaochen, ask for more benefits and don't be soft-hearted. Don't think that this place looks simple. This poor monk is very rich. Xiaochen felt speechless. This senior Pan Huang speaks without any scruples. He does not have the air of a senior expert at all. If this abbot knew about Pan Huang's voice projection, what would he think? Greetings, seniors. Xiaochen said calmly with a cupped fist salute. After Abbot Su Yi returned the greeting, he went straight to the point. I believe you know that junior brother Su Yun invited you here because he has other matters to discuss. I am the one in charge of this matter, so let me do the talking. There is no harm in speaking. The ancient Yen Emperor tomb will open in 2 months. This old monk already knows that Benefactor Xiao has an ethereal immortal palace key and will be going with the 9th prince. Indeed, it is as senior Pan Huang guessed. Xiaochen's expression did not change as he said, Indeed. Venerable Abbot, what advice do you have for me? Abbot Su Yi paused for a moment before continuing. If the ethereal immortal palace really appears, I would like to ask Benefactor Xiao to make a move and ensure that the Wings of Time do not fall into the hands of the demons. Xiaochen's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Abbot Su Yi and asked, Senior, are you so sure that demons will enter the ancient Yen Emperor tomb? Venerable Su Yun, who was at the side, said, Some of the royal court's elders have been working with the Azure Lotus Church in secret for a long time. They are even bolder this time. To think that even the ancient Yen Emperor tomb, a forbidden land of the royal court, tacitly allowed them to enter. They think that no one knows. However, my hidden spirit temple naturally has a way to find out. Xiaochen frowned and said, I don't understand. Isn't working with the Azure Lotus Church like asking a tiger for its skin? The abbot sighed helplessly. The people of the royal clan have their own way of doing things. They feel that they can toy with the Azure Lotus Church and use it to keep my hidden spirit temple in check. In reality, it is as Benefactor Xiao said. If this isn't asking a tiger for its skin, what is? However, there will always be people who think themselves clever, thinking that they can control everything. I understand. Xiaochen nodded to indicate that he understood. Perhaps to the royal court, the Azure Lotus Church and the Hidden Spirit Temple were not good things. Balancing the two sides was the best choice. However, Xiaochen had other doubts. Does the Hidden Spirit Temple know that Yuan Zhen has an ethereal immortal palace key as well? Has your esteemed temple never thought of working with the other princes? Wouldn't that be more direct? Xiaochen asked probingly after some thought. Venerable Su Yun smiled bitterly. Right now, the royal court is avoiding the Hidden Spirit Temple like a tiger, fearing that the Hidden Spirit Temple supports a prince ascending to the throne. Hence, they do not allow the Hidden Spirit Temple's disciples to enter. Otherwise, the Hidden Spirit Temple would not have to trouble Benefactor Xiao. After a moment of silence, Xiaochen said, I find this very strange. Even without you saying anything, I would not sit back and watch others snatch away the wings of time. Su Ming, who had been silent all this while, said coldly, "Stop? How are you going to stop them? With your strength, it would be pretty good if you don't lose your life." Xiao Chen found this strange. The moment this Su Ming entered, his eyes showed some hostility. Now, his words were also very blunt. Su Yun quickly said, "Benefactor Xiao, please don't take offense. My junior brother's words were blunt, but they were the truth." Senior brother Abbot sought you out because he worried that you and the ninth prince would not be strong enough to stop the Azure Lotus Church. "So," Abbot Su Yi said, "so, this old monk decided to lend you a hand. This is a Bodhi seed that has been placed at the summit of Spirit Vulture Mountain for 10,000 years. It has a strong suppressive effect on evil Buddhist sections. If the ethereal immortal palace really appears, Benefactor Xiao can use this item to suppress all evil Buddhist sect experts." When Xiao Chen received the scarlet Bodhi seed, he saw that it was a scarlet Bodhi seed. When he looked at it carefully, he discovered that the scarlet Bodhi seed had many tiny divine scripts carved on it, at least 10,000 of them. What is on it? The Kasyapa Buddhist scripture is a supreme scripture of the Buddhist sections. All heretics will be suppressed before this scripture. Those who are not strong enough might even turn to ashes on the spot. However, it is not very useful to those who are not of the Buddhist sections. This item is incredibly precious. If the ethereal immortal palace does not appear, please keep it. Abbot Su Yi instructed softly as he looked at the Bodhi seed in Xiao Chen's hand with some reluctance. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and did not say anything more. Now that it was in his hands, there was naturally no reason for him to return it. However, this scarlet Bodhi seed was not enough to convince him. Xiao Chen said calmly, "I want another item." "What is it?" "A copy of the last 6 moves of the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique." Although rumor had it that the secret manual was lost and the hidden spirit temple did not have a complete copy, Xiao Chen did not really believe that. Since the original copy was missing, there should be a copy. Chapter 2266. After Xiao Chen made his request, the expressions of Abbot Su Yi, Su Yun, and Su Ming all changed slightly. A sinister look flashed in Su Ming's eyes. Not to mention that this is a Buddhist sect forbidden technique, it has already spread out. The hidden spirit temple does not have a complete copy. Even if they did, they would not give it to someone who cultivates a demonic Tao cultivation technique and is plagued with sin. So, that is the case. This old monk sensed the demonic Tao cultivation technique in Xiao Chen, which was why he was so hostile. Su Yun said slowly and softly, "Benefactor Xiao, please change your request. This request is too difficult." The hidden spirit temple's abbot, Su Yi, looked at Xiao Chen. Although he did not say anything, his eyes conveyed the same meaning. "In that case, there is no need to negotiate. I do not care about other requests." Xiao Chen took out the scarlet Bodhi seed and handed it back. Then, he prepared to take his leave. Abbot Su Yi received the scarlet Bodhi seed from Xiao Chen. Then, he remained silent. Su Yun sighed softly at the side. As for Su Ming, he snorted coldly and said, "We are not asking him for help. There is no need to think so highly of him." Xiao Chen, who had already turned around, smiled coldly in his heart. "In that case, why did they ask me to come?" Su Ming needed to clarify this. To Xiao Chen, he was not obligated to help the Hidden Spirit Temple stop the Azure Lotus Church's people. Giving him the Scarlet Bodhi seed to suppress the Azure Lotus Church was not a problem for Xiao Chen. After all, it was free. Since the other party invited him, Xiao Chen naturally had the qualifications to raise conditions. Furthermore, did this Su Ming really think that he was not a match for the Azure Lotus Church without the Scarlet Bodhi seed? In that case, Su Ming underestimated Xiao Chen too much. "Benefactor Xiao, please wait." Just as Xiao Chen was about to leave the Su Yun Hall, Abbot Su Yi turned around and arrived before Xiao Chen, holding the Scarlet Bodhi seed. "This item is a token of our temple's sincerity. Benefactor Xiao Chen personally killed the Black Lotus Church's sect venerate and reconstructed little Yen Chen's physical body. No matter what, my Buddhist sect is greatly indebted to you. Thus, this item is a gift. Su Yi stepped forward and returned the blood-colored Bodhi to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not stand on ceremony. He put away the blood-colored Bodhi and handed over the Golden Book of Buddhism. Benefactor Xiao, what is the meaning of this? Venerable Su Yun asked after receiving the golden letter. Xiao Chen said softly, Senior Su Ming seems to have a problem with me. I don't know if I can accept the so-called kindness, so I don't dare to be presumptuous. One thing for one thing. Xiao Chen still respected Venerable Su Yun and Abbot Su Yi. However, Su Ming treated them with hostility for no reason. This made Xiao Chen somewhat uncomfortable. It felt like he was deliberately taking advantage of the hidden spirit temple. Abbot Su Yi, you don't have to worry too much. The first prince and I will not rest until one of us is dead. If the Azure Lotus Church really wants to protect him, I have no reason not to kill them. So, even without your esteemed temple's request, I would still stop this group of people from obtaining the wings of time. Xiao Chen paused for a moment and said softly, As for my strength, boom. Before Xiao Chen could finish speaking, his entire body suddenly released a blue light. His chest looked transparent. It was crystalline and translucent, resplendent and dazzling. I have an immortal heart. When the dust scatters and the flower blooms, it will illuminate 3 lifetimes. The blue lotus flower under Xiao Chen's feet bloomed elegantly. His white robes looked simple and tidy. With a thought, he executed the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique's 3-life flower. Xiao Chen stood on the lotus flower, but it seemed like he was separated from it by an entire world, appearing boundlessly mysterious. This was a saber technique, but no one could sense any saber intent. This move already reached great perfection. The saber intent in it already existed between formless and tangible. Formless meant that one could not sense it. Formless meant that the entire state was made of saber intent. The expressions of Su Yi and the other two changed, feeling shocked in their hearts. This was not a strength that a small perfection sovereign emperor should have. Suddenly, there was a change in the realm. Xiao Chen's figure on the blue lotus flower turned blurry and distorted. The entire world sank into darkness. A cold, killing intent formed by Buddhist might soared into the clouds, seeming to merge with the heavenly Tao. The sky shattered, and an eye formed by the heavenly Tao's killing intent struggled to open. Heavenly Eye! Su Yun exclaimed, This is the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique's merciless killing. If heaven has feelings, it will age. The heavenly Tao is the most emotionless, and the heavenly Tao's killing intent is the most powerful. One will die without a doubt if one looks at heaven. The heavenly Tao was the most emotionless. When it came to killing, who could compare to heaven? When heaven opened its eyes, whoever it looked at would die. If heaven wanted to kill, who dared to say no? This was merciless killing. Xiao Chen casually waved his hand, and the various mysterious phenomena immediately vanished as if nothing had happened. Xiao Chen bowed slightly and said softly, This junior was rude and embarrassed myself before the 3 seniors. As foe gods, you naturally do not care about such insignificant tricks. However, I believe that as long as a peak sovereign emperor does not make a move, this junior will be able to protect myself. That was right. That earlier move was merciless killing, the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique's 6th move. Xiao Chen was not trying to show off on purpose. Doing so before 3 foe gods would appear to be overestimating his own abilities. However, Xiao Chen was truly unconvinced by this false reputation. Xiao Chen's expression showed that he wanted to take advantage of the hidden spirit temple. May the Lord Buddha bless me. Benefactor Xiao is too humble. Such skills are an eye-opener for us. Truth be told, aside from Mahamaya himself, no one in our temple can practice merciless killing. As for Benefactor Zhao's 3-life flower, it is even more astonishing. It seems to have already surpassed Mahamis. Abbot Su Yi praised Xiao Chen's 3-life flower more than the 3-life flower and merciless killing. This was because Xiao Chen had already practiced the three-life flower to great perfection, nearly reaching perfection. He had already surpassed the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique's limits. As for merciless killing, it was because Xiao Chen had just reached small perfection and still had many flaws. One could tell that it was a little strenuous for him to use it. However, with the three-life flower before him, Xiao Chen believed that great perfection was only a matter of time. "Junior brother, what do you think?" Venerable Su Yun asked Su Ming with a faint smile. Naturally, Su Ming felt very upset. He really wanted to say something insignificant, that it was merely SOSO. However, he clearly could not say such words. Saying it would be like slapping himself in the face. Hence, Su Ming showed a sullen expression and decided not to say anything. Seeing that Su Ming had nothing to say, Venerable Su Yun looked at the abbot and said, "Senior brother, I feel that there are some things that we should honestly tell Benefactor Xiao." Xiao Chen showed some doubt in his eyes, feeling somewhat confused. So he thought for a while. Then he looked at Xiao Chen and said, "Actually, Benefactor Xiao does not know this. This Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique only has 9 moves. The last 3 moves are the result of Mahamaya's disguise, reversing the sequence. If anyone follows Mahamaya's instructions and practices the last 6 moves, they will fall into a state of madness. This is the reason why this technique is classified as a forbidden move. In terms of killing, there are actually several Buddhist sect martial techniques with even more ferocious killing intent than the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique. My Buddha is merciful. However, the merciful must be stained with blood. Otherwise, how can they illuminate the world and kill evil?" When Xiao Chen heard that, he felt slightly stunned. He had not expected there to be such a secret. In that case, why not announce it to the world? Su Yi sighed softly. "An expert of my Buddhist sect discovered the secret only after a long time. After that, the saber manual was stolen, so we hid this secret to prevent someone from truly practicing this Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique from harming my Buddhist sect. So, that is the case. As for the last 3 moves, the hidden spirit temple does indeed have them. However, they are already sealed in an extremely evil land. This is because Mahamaya itself is a taboo in the hidden spirit temple. There is no need to elaborate on this reason." A thought occurred to Xiao Chen. "So," Abbot Su Yi said after some thought, "since Benefactor Xiao is already determined to go against the Azure Lotus Church, the hidden spirit temple can lend Benefactor Xiao a hand. We can tell you where the 7th move is. As for whether you can obtain it or not, that will depend on Benefactor Xiao's ability." It looked like the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique did have many implications. The hidden spirit temple could not possibly let Xiao Chen practice the complete version of the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique and tell him where the 7th move was. The hidden spirit temple also took a fancy to Xiao Chen's strength, allowing him to fight with the Azure Lotus Church's experts. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Hence, they made an exception this time. "Where is it?" Xiao Chen asked. Abbot Su Yi said after some thought, "Come with me." When Su Ming saw the situation, he felt dissatisfied. However, Su Yi and Su Yun already made up their minds. No matter how dissatisfied Su Ming was, he could not stop them. He snorted coldly and turned to leave. Chapter 2267. Su Ye's actions upset Su Ming, so he immediately left. When the two saw the situation, they felt somewhat helpless but did not say anything. Venerable Su Yun consoled Xiao Chen, saying, "Benefactor Xiao, there is no need to mind. Junior brother Su Ming is overly attached to the righteous and evil paths. He once had a great ambition to sweep away all the evil demons in the world and re-establish the Orthodox Buddhist sect, bringing glory to the world. It is inevitable for him to feel some enmity for you. In reality, senior brother and I are not too attached to the righteous and evil paths. Whether there is a Buddha in our hearts or not, we follow our hearts. As long as one does not believe in an evil Buddha and has a fate with Buddha, we are all friends." Abbot Su Yi added, "That's right. Faith cannot be forced. The Kasayapa Buddha never said such a thing. Before he became a Buddha, the Kasyapa Buddha once cultivated a demonic Tao cultivation technique. However, at the final moment, he still became a Buddha and established the great cause of the Buddhist sect. Shaoqun nodded in agreement. Being a Buddha did not mean that one would not make mistakes or be supreme. There was no need to force others to believe in it. As for false reputation, Shaoqun was not surprised by this grand ambition of his. Since ancient times, there had been no lack of such fanatics. It was not just the Buddhist sect. There were many such ambitious people in the other sections. Under Abbot Su Ye's lead, Shaoqun followed him to a small path that meandered upward. Unknowingly, they had arrived at the summit of Spirit Vulture Mountain. This was a cold, damp, and dark, empty land. An unsettling and anxious atmosphere spread in the air. It was like all the sins of the world gathered here. Shaoqun looked at the boundless darkness before him. The land seemed to be filled with sin and wildness, making him feel somewhat strange. Where is this? How can a pure land of the Buddhist sect have such a dirty place? Shaoqun could not help asking, feeling like he had arrived in the abyssal underworld. Venerable Su Yun asked after some thought, "Did you see the golden Kasyapa Buddha at the summit when you were at the foot of the mountain?" Shaoqun nodded. "Naturally I saw it. It would be hard not to see it. When one looked up, one could see the huge golden Kasyapa Buddha at the summit. Buddhist light shone, and auspicious signs filled the sky. That world was like a dreamland of heaven. It was just like the pure land of ultimate bliss mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures, causing one to yearn for it and feel reverence for it. At that time, Shaoqun wondered if the hidden spirit temple was hidden in the small world behind the golden Kasyapa Buddha body. This is the world behind Kasyapa Buddha, where the sins of the greater thousand worlds are gathered. With supreme sentiments, Buddha shouldered all the sins on behalf of the people of the world, spreading his compassion all over the world. The pure land of ultimate bliss that everyone yearned for was the human world, the mortal world. Buddha created the pure land of ultimate bliss for them, but they don't even realize it. Venerable Su Yun's words made Shaoqun enter deep thought. The human world was a pure land, and bliss was right beside him. It was an interesting point of view, but the Buddhist sects did not publicize it. Or perhaps, the mortals of the world were unwilling to accept reality. They actually didn't need the kingdom of heaven. What they needed was an illusion. Shaoqun did not delve too deeply into the reason behind it. He casually sized up the dark and empty land in front of him. Not a single blade of grass grew in the boundless wilderness, and a rancid smell lingered in the air. Extremely ferocious wild beasts lived in this lifeless land. Many of them even retained the aura of pure great desolate Aeon savage beasts. Even further away, at the edge of his field of vision, he could vaguely see 7 black mountains. Aside from ferocious beasts, he also saw several hidden spirit temple disciples undergoing experiential training here. They either tempered their Buddhist hearts, practiced magic skills, or hunted savage beasts. It looked like this place was no secret to the hidden spirit temple disciples. Do you see the 7 black mountains? The saber manual for the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique's 7th move is in those black mountains. The black mountains are forbidden lands of the Buddhist sections. I can only give you half a month. If you cannot find the saber manual, benefactor Shao can only leave. Shaoqun looked in the direction that Venerable Su Yun pointed. It was the 3rd mountain from the left. It was too far away, so he could not make out any mysterious phenomenon. I understand. Many thanks to the 2 seniors for giving me this opportunity. No matter what, I have to give it a try. Even though Shaoqun knew that the hidden spirit temple might not be able to give him the saber manual for the final 2 moves, he still had to grasp this opportunity. Right now, Shaoqun grasped the saber manual for the 6 moves. Breaking the mundane, resolving the mundane, and entering hell were the moves he obtained by himself. As for the last 3 moves in the mortal realm, 3-life flower and merciless killing, he obtained them from the little monk Yen Qin. As for the final 3 moves, they were taboos among taboos within the Buddhist sections. They were stored in this extremely evil land. If Shaoqun could find them and cultivate them successfully, it would be an unprecedented feat. Goodbye. Xiao Chen turned around, performed a cupped fist salute, and left. The moment he turned around, he saw a Buddha statue, which stunned him for a moment. That Buddha statue was incredibly tall but expressionless. Its entire body was pitch black, looking cold and emotionless. This Buddha statue was filled with might and pressure, not showing any benevolence or mercy. However, it was solemn and dignified, looking somewhat strange. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. This should be the golden body of that Kasyapa Buddha. However, everyone could only see its front. When the Kasyapa Buddha statue saw the resplendent golden light and the auspicious signs filling the sky, it smiled. Which one was the real one? Or rather, both sides were true bodies. Looking at it this way, one could understand why the Azure Lotus Church and the Black Lotus Church split from the Buddhist sect. Shaking his head, Zhang Xian turned around and continued on his way. At the same time, Su Ming showed an unsightly expression in the Hidden Spirit Temple. He was clearly unhappy with Fang Zhang's senior brother's idea. Yuan Zhen sat quietly on the left, listening to Xiao Chen's rage. Grandmaster, there's no need to worry too much. Even if he went to the Dark World, he might not be able to cross that sea. Even if he crossed that sea, he might not be able to ascend the Black Mountain. It would be even more difficult to find the Saber Technique manual. Yuan Zhen said softly after remaining silent for a long time. Su Ming shook his head and said, "You cannot underestimate this person. Previously, I did not look down on him too much, but I have to admit it. This brat's strength is somewhat terrifying. Even if you undo the seal, you might not be able to completely suppress him." Yuan Zhen nodded. Martial Ancestor is right. Su Ming said sullenly, "What I am angry about is not giving him the saber manual but senior brother Abbott's attitude. He is a yes man, completely lacking the dignity of a Buddhist sect leader. No wonder the Buddhist sect has been losing its prestige in the past few years. To be so polite to a sinful person, the evil sect will destroy it sooner or later." Yuan Zhen quickly said, "Martial Ancestor, you cannot speak of this carelessly," Su Ming forcefully interrupted. "There's no need to worry. This time, when you sneak into the ancient Yen Emperor tomb, if the ethereal immortal palace comes out, you must snatch the wings of time. Only with the wings of time can a Buddhist monarch truly break through the epic's shackles and descend into this world. We need to start a new epic. This group of people is too conservative. How can the Orthodox Buddhist sect rise up in their hands?" A brilliant light flickered in Yuan Zhen's eyes as he said, "Martial Ancestor, rest assured. This disciple will do his best to let a Buddhist monarch descend into this world." Su Ming looked at Yuan Zhen and smiled in satisfaction. "It looks like I was right to choose you." Xiao Chen had once stayed in the abyssal underworld for a few months. He was very familiar with such a dark and turbid environment. Furthermore, he cultivated a demonic Dao cultivation technique in the first place. Now, he could change his divine energy C as he pleased. He did not feel any discomfort in this environment. However, traveling was exhausting. The 7 Black Mountains were clearly not far away, but after walking for 7 days, it still felt unreachable. The journey was not difficult. However, the occasional ferocious beasts gave Xiao Chen a headache. The further he went, the stronger the ferocious beasts he encountered. During this period, Xiao Chen met several Hidden Spirit Temple disciples and tried to converse with them. He tried to converse with them and gained some unexpected gains. These disciples did not treat him as an outsider, telling him about the situation here. For example, the 7 Black Mountains were a taboo. Even the strongest among them could only walk to a sea of bitterness and look at the 7 Black Mountains across the sea. After that, they could not proceed any further. However, no one could say for sure how far that sea was. Some said it was only 50,000 kilometers, some said it was 500,000 kilometers, and some said it was tens of millions of kilometers. One would have to walk for a year before reaching it. No matter what the answer was, Xiao Chen did not even see the shadow of that sea. Clearly, the Black Mountains were even further away. However, this place greatly suppressed the Dao domain. The laws of space and time were different. Even a simple jump drained a vast amount of divine energy. Hence, Xiao Chen could only continue walking in boredom. Fortunately, Xiao Chen's mental state was good enough. He could endure the boredom of this environment. On a certain day, Xiao Chen looked up and a light flickered in his eyes. When Xiao Chen squinted, he discovered that a bright sea had appeared in front at some point in time. In this gloomy and cold environment, the sea was exceptionally clear and could be discovered at a glance. Xiao Chen rejoiced in his heart. He could not help speeding up. Chapter 2268. It was a sea. Suddenly, a clear, jade-green sea appeared in the dark and desolate world. The seawater was pure, reflecting the 7 black mountains. Xiao Chen arrived at the seaside. Then he revealed a contemplative expression, remaining silent. Before he came, he had heard that a sea of bitterness was at the edge of this world. The hidden Spirit Temple disciples on experiential training here could not advance any further after reaching this place. While there were temple rules, the greater reason was that they could not go out. This sea was known as the Sea of Bitterness. The Buddhists said that the Sea of Bitterness was boundless. Since it was boundless, one naturally could not go out. The 7 sufferings of the world were birth, old age, illness, death, hatred, love, separation, and unattainable. This vast sea gathered boundless suffering. Once, Xiao Chen had faced a sea of bitterness in the Kunlun realm. That sea of bitterness had a headless Kittagarbha bodhisattva. There were saber lights left by the Qing emperor and countless aggrieved spirits and malicious ghosts lingering in the sea of bitterness in agony. Xiao Chen was no stranger to the sea of bitterness. However, the sea of bitterness before him was different from the one he saw in the Kunlun realm. Firstly, there was no Kittagarbha bodhisattva or countless aggrieved spirits. Secondly, this sea of bitterness was clear and pure, with the 7 black mountains reflected in it. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the other side of the sea of bitterness, at the 3rd black mountain from the left. That was his destination. The saber manual for the Mahama abstinence violation saber technique's 7th move was hidden there. 13 days of the half-month that Su Yi gave Xiao Chen had already passed. He only had 2 days left. If Xiao Chen delayed in this sea of bitterness, it would be practically impossible to obtain the saber manual. Hence, he could not step onto this sea of bitterness without being fully confident. Xiao Chen bent over and scooped up a puddle of clear seawater. They slid off his fingertips one by one, dripping to the ground. Every drop of water had a vague reflection of Xiao Chen trapped in it. Strange, is this really a sea of bitterness? Xiao Chen felt doubtful. Although the many hidden Spirit Temple disciples said that this was a sea of bitterness, Xiao Chen had seen it before. However, Xiao Chen, who had seen the true sea of bitterness, felt doubtful and did not dare to agree. Whoosh! Xiao Chen flicked his finger, and a saber light shot out. The saber light stuck close to the water and flew forward. Wherever he passed, waves would be stirred up. He pressed forward courageously, flying, flying, flying. They were always in sight, unable to fly out of the sea. Interesting. Below the Kasyapa Buddha's golden body, Su Yi and Yun, who were secretly observing Xiao Chen. Below the Kasyapa Buddha's golden body at the summit of Spirit Vulture Mountain, Su Yun and Su Yi, who were secretly observing Xiao Chen, revealed faint smiles. It looks like he can walk out of this. If he can't get out, he can't blame us for not giving him a chance. The two of them were more optimistic about whether Xiao Chen could obtain the saber manual or not. They were more relaxed. Yi, Xiao and in spirits would not. And would. And he and was they he and saber. And Xiao and would not. To the hidden Spirit Temple, this was a win-win situation. Unfortunately, Su Ming did not think of this. However, just when the two concluded that Xiao Chen could not walk out of this sea, he took a step forward and calmly walked up. Strange, he figured it out? It can't be that fast, right? Su Yun and Su Yi both revealed shock, clearly surprised. Could it be that Xiao Chen was really going to be the first person to step on the Black Mountains in the past few thousand years? Step by step, Xiaochen showed a calm expression as he walked to the center of the sea and stopped. Along the way, he felt a strange bitterness in his heart. His mind was filled with all the bitterness he had suffered in the past few years. This was especially so for Lu Ryue. She seemed to follow him like a shadow. He could not obtain her in secret. The pain of parting with love was indescribable. It was unbearable pain, nearly breaking down. No wonder no one could walk out. With every step, they had to endure the pain of nearly breaking down. Anyone would choose to turn back. Turning back was the shore. However, this shore was not the opposite shore. It was returning to the starting point. When Xiaochen looked down, the seawater was still clear and pure. The 7 black mountains were reflected in the water. Everything looked very normal. However, there was no reflection of himself in the water. Xiaochen thought of the blurry scenes of himself trapped in the water droplets. Every water droplet had his reflection. However, he could not see his reflection in the entire sea. When Xiaochen thought about the distance to the sea of bitterness that many of the hidden spirit temple disciples mentioned, he realized that they were all different. Xiaochen already understood that this was not a sea of bitterness but the sea in everyone's heart. The thousands of bitterness in one's heart condensed into a sea. If one wanted to go up the Black Mountains, one had to walk out of this sea of bitterness in one's heart. That was why he could explain why every single water droplet had his reflection trapped in it, but the entire surface of the sea did not have his reflection. This was because this sea was Xiaochen himself. How could it reflect him? Why did no one walk out? This was because they could not comprehend this. They could not realize that they were in an illusion, trapped in the sea of bitterness in their hearts. If one knew this, it would be easy to walk out. As for how to break out, one had to close one's eyes and observe one's heart. When one saw the sea in one's heart, one would naturally be able to walk out of the sea in one's heart. This was because Xiaochen was not in any sea of bitterness at all. It was just an illusion that trapped him in his own sea of bitterness. Whoosh! When Xiaochen opened his eyes again, he discovered that he was already at the foot of the Black Mountain. When Xiaochen turned his head back, he saw an indistinct expressionless Buddha statue in the distance. Xiaochen smiled faintly, knowing that he had managed to walk out. After checking his surroundings and confirming that he was at the foot of the 3rd Black Mountain from the left, Xiaochen relaxed. Flowers bloomed at the foot of the Black Mountain. To think that rare and beautiful flowers bloomed at the foot of the Black Mountain in this sinful land. These are blood spirit flowers? Xiaochen felt slightly stunned. He had seen these flowers before. The blood spirit flowers contained a pure demonic nature, a natural tonic for demonic Tao cultivators. However, this was not important. What was important was that these blood spirit flowers bloomed exceptionally beautifully. They had existed for at least 10,000 years. When Xiaochen looked around, he saw that the entire Black Mountain was covered in similar strange flowers and plants. The blood spirit flowers at the foot of the mountain were just the lowest ranked ones. What a treasure mountain! Xiaochen muttered to himself. He rejoiced in his heart. Now that he cultivated both martial and spiritual energy, he could switch divine energy freely. Be it spiritual energy divine energy or demonic energy divine energy, it made no difference to him. These natural treasures that the monks of the hidden spirit temple avoided were supreme treasures in Xiaochen's eyes. What was even more delightful was that no one had come to this place for a very long time already. Even if someone came, they probably did not touch these demonic flowers or demonic fruits. Xiaochen swept his gaze through the blood spirit flowers. Finally, his gaze landed on an eye-catching blood spirit fruit. Blood spirit flowers were extremely rare. However, it was even more difficult to harvest them. It was not easy to obtain a blood spirit fruit. Now, with a casual glance, Xiaochen actually saw a blood spirit fruit. The 10,000-year-old blood spirit flowers that other demonic Tao cultivators considered supreme treasures. However, Xiaochen did not even bother looking at them, directly picking this blood spirit fruit. After plucking this blood spirit fruit, Xiaochen thought for a while before swallowing it. Then, he sat down cross-legged and quickly circulated his demonic cloud heaven swallowing art. The spiritual energy from the blood spirit fruit flowed endlessly into Xiao Chen's divine energy sea like a gushing river. After about 15 minutes, Xiao Chen completely refined the medicinal properties of the blood spirit fruit. When Xiao Chen opened his eyes, a spiritual light flickered in them. This blood spirit fruit was at least 10,000 years old. With this, Xiao Chen's cultivation improved by 10%. After all, Xiao Chen was now a two-vein sovereign emperor. Raising his cultivation by 10% in 15 minutes showed how horrifying it was. However, when Xiao Chen looked at the demonic flowers and demonic fruits covering the mountain, he felt that this was nothing. If he absorbed all of them, it would be normal for him to advance to three-vein sovereign emperor within a short time. Even if I did not find the saber manual on this trip, I still gained a lot. Xiao Chen stood up with a faint smile on his face. These demonic flowers covering the mountain were a huge pleasant surprise. Venerable Su Yun and Abbot Su Yi probably did not expect such a surprise. Xiao Chen thought to himself, I do not have much time left. I can only absorb the most precious of these demonic flowers and demonic fruits. I absolutely cannot touch them unless they are 10,000-year-old or older. That would be a waste of time. After making up his mind, Xiao Chen started a frenzied search on this mountain. He did not know if these demonic flowers and demonic fruits would still be effective after leaving the Black Peak. In a mere 2 days, Xiao Chen's cultivation soared rapidly, climbing all the way to peak two-vein sovereign emperor. It looked like Xiao Chen was about to break through his bottleneck and break through his bottleneck. Xiao Chen advanced to three-vein sovereign emperor by relying on these demonic flowers covering the mountain. However, Venerable Su Yun and Abbot Su Yi, who were on Spirit Vulture Mountain, started to feel anxious. As Xiao Chen frantically hunted, cracks actually appeared on the peak of Spirit Vulture Mountain, which was filled with auspicious signs. To think that he did not think of this. We cannot let him continue. The Black Peak has lost too much of its demonic nature. The balance between good and evil will be lost. Chapter 2269. Whoosh! Before Xiao Chen, who was already a two-vein sovereign emperor, could continue searching for 10,000-year-old demonic fruits to break through, a strong force pulled him out of the Black Mountain. An irresistible force pulled him out of the Black Mountain. When Xiao Chen recovered his vision, he looked around and was surprised to discover that he had appeared at the summit of Spirit Vulture Mountain. He had actually appeared at the peak of the Spirit Vulture Mountain, and right beside him was the golden body of the Kasayapa Buddha, which was as tall as a mountain. In comparison, Xiao Chen was as weak as an ant. When Xiao Chen looked back, he saw Venerable Su Yun and Abbot Su Yi looking at Xiao Chen uneasily. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up like he understood something. After some thought, he said, Seniors, this junior's time to leave the Black Mountain should not be up yet. If I remember correctly, there is still at least one more day. Venerable Su Yun said awkwardly, That's right. Benefactor Zhao's time is not up yet. Then, why did you pull me out in advance? Xiao Chen felt very upset. If he had stayed another day, he would have broken through the two-vein sovereign emperor bottleneck and reached three-vein sovereign emperor. Being forcefully pulled out of a bottleneck while being stuck at it was not a good feeling. Abbot Su Yi laughed, Benefactor is joking. This is the saber manual that Benefactor wants. You have already passed the test. There is no need for you to remain on the Black Mountain. Right after Abbot Su Yi spoke, he handed a jade strip to Xiao Chen without saying anything. Xiao Chen received the jade strip, feeling somewhat confused, not understanding its meaning. That's it then. Benefactor, please leave the mountain. I'll leave the Azure Lotus Church's matters in the ancient Yen Emperor tomb to Benefactor Xiao. Before Xiao Chen could say anything, Venerable Su Yun had already asked him to leave. But Venerable Su Yun supported Xiao Chen and smiled. There are no buts. Don't you want the saber manual? I already gave it to you, so there are no buts. Come, I'll send Benefactor Xiao off. Without giving Xiao Chen a chance to speak, the two Buddhist sect powerhouses forcefully sent Xiao Chen out of Spirit Vulture Mountain. After they left, they all heaved a sigh of relief, feeling extremely exhausted. How stupid! To think that he did not think of this. He dual cultivates martial Tao and demonic Tao. Entering the Black Mountain is like a wolf entering a flock of sheep. If we let him stay here for a moment longer, the balance of good and evil will be lost. I really don't know what kind of disaster it will cause. Venerable Su Yun sighed softly as he looked at the auspicious signs in the sky above Spirit Vulture Mountain slowly mending. A trace of doubt appeared in Abbot Su Ye's eyes. He asked, "Junior brother, have you ever thought about why the two of us made such a mistake?" "That's right. With our intelligence, logically speaking, we should have noticed this. Leaving out such a huge piece of information might be excusable for others, but anyone with a meticulous mind would make mistakes. However, to Su Yun and Su Yi, this was not right. The two of them were faux God realm cultivators. Everything, no matter how big or small, would be imprinted in his mind. It was impossible for him to miss the information about Shao Chen's demonic arts. Suddenly, horror flashed in Venerable Su Yun's eyes. He said sullenly, "Could it be that he already broke the shackles of dual cultivating martial Tao and demonic Tao, causing us to forget that he cultivated a demonic cultivation technique? Dual cultivating martial Tao and demonic Tao gets harder the further one goes. It is a dead end. Even the Kasyapa Buddha gave up on his demonic Tao and demonic Tao the moment he became a Buddha. Since ancient times, no one has been able to completely merge martial Tao and demonic Tao." Abbot Su Yi said softly, "If that is really the case, then it is somewhat terrifying. A person who can completely merge martial Tao and demonic Tao is equivalent to breaking the shackles of the entire martial epic. It looks like the martial epic is truly at its end. Signs of it are appearing one after another." The two Buddhist sect faux god powerhouses appeared somewhat worried, showing grave expressions. Shao Chen, who had already descended the mountain, felt confused as he held the jade strip in his hand. Why did they give me the Muhammad Abstinence Violation Saber Techniques Saber Manual for nothing? These two should not be that kind. If they really wanted to give me the Saber Manual, Abbot Su Yi would not have let Shao Chen risk his life in the dark world from the start. Clearly, Abbot Su Yi was trying to put on a show. "It was not that I did not want to give you the Saber Manual. I gave you the opportunity, but you did not fight for it. You cannot blame me." However, when Shao Chen's cultivation advanced rapidly on the Black Peak, he nearly forgot about the Saber Manual. The two forcefully pulled him out and stuffed him with the Saber Manual. Then, they chased him down the mountain without any explanation. Strange. Shao Chen shook his head and stopped thinking. Although he did not break through the two-vein Sovereign Emperor bottleneck in the end, he gained a fortuitous encounter for no reason. This allowed his cultivation to reach peak two-vein Sovereign Emperor and obtained a Saber Manual. No matter what, Shao Chen gained a lot from this trip to the Hidden Spirit Temple. It is time to return to the Misty Rain Pavilion. It has been less than half a month. I wonder what happened to these people after that huge commotion? Shao Chen muttered to himself as he prepared to rush back to the Misty Rain Pavilion. Just at this moment, a figure flickered endlessly in the air before landing firmly in front of Shao Chen. "Benefactor Shao, how have you been?" The person who arrived turned around. It was the mysterious Yuan Zhen that Shao Chen had not seen for a long time. According to Su Yun and Su Yi, they did not know that Yuan Zhen already had an ethereal immortal palace key. This person was somewhat mysterious. "I'm fine. Brother Yuan Zhen, why are you here?" Shao Chen replied casually. However, he kept his guard up and spread out his spiritual sense in all directions. Brother Shao, there is no need to be so nervous. No one below Spirit Vulture Mountain dares to touch Benefactor Shao. Furthermore, everyone in the imperial capital knows that you are the 9th prince's guest. Who would dare to touch you? Yuan Zhen said softly with narrowed eyes. Shao Chen felt excited. The competition for the prince's guests should have reached its most intense stage in the past half a month. Unexpectedly, the 9th prince took the initiative to announce that Shao Chen was his guest. "Brother Yuan Zhen, there is no need to worry. I am just cautious by nature. However, as far as I know, the Hidden Spirit Temple disciples cannot become the prince's guests. Why is Brother Yuan Zhen so concerned about the succession race?" Xiao Chen probed, wanting to see if he could glean something from Yuan Zhen's expression. Yuan Zhen did not appear surprised when he heard that. It looks like Brother Xiao learned a lot on this trip to the Hidden Spirit Temple. Indeed, the Hidden Spirit Temple disciples cannot become guests. However, the succession race is now the focus of the entire city. Nearly all the sovereign emperors under 500 years old in the entire Great Thousand Realms have gathered in Yen City. I know about this. At this point, Yuan Zhen paused for a moment. Then he smiled and said, Brother Xiao, there might be some trouble when you return. Right now, the competition for the position of a prince's guest is rather scary. Many thanks for the reminder. How are my friends in the Misty Rain Pavilion doing? The other party seemed to know a lot. So, Xiao Chen asked about the things that he was more concerned about. After the wedding, the first prince was unable to recover, and his momentum plummeted. Now, the three princes are back at the starting line. Now, they are busy with the succession race and cannot care about anything else. Furthermore, everyone saw the relationship between the Sword God and Pavilion Master Su. Who would dare to touch the Misty Rain Pavilion? Xiao Chen heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. However, after saying so much, why are you here? Me? Yuan Zhen replied softly, I'm just here to see you. I want to know how much your strength has improved since you left the Dark World. In the end, it looks like you crossed that sea and ascended the Black Peak. Otherwise, your strength would not have improved in such a short time. A bright light flickered in the depths of Yuan Zhen's eyes. He keenly noticed Xiao Chen's improvement. You seem to understand a lot about the Dark World, Xiao Chen said, not denying it. If we were to become enemies one day, would you kill me? Yuan Zhen suddenly changed the topic and asked this question. Xiao Chen glanced at the other party and replied calmly, I will. In that case, I can rest assured because I will as well. Please don't show mercy. Yuan Zhen narrowed his eyes slightly, revealing a smile on his face. Xiao Chen could not tell if he was sad or happy. Take care. I won't send you off. Yuan Zhen pressed his palms together and bowed slightly. Then he turned and left. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. After speaking for so long, what Yuan Zhen truly wanted to ask should be the last question. It looks like the other party will most likely enter the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. However, why does this feel somewhat strange? If they really become enemies, why did Yuan Zhen ask this? This was equivalent to reminding Xiao Chen. You have to be careful. The next time we meet, I will kill you. This person is really a mystery. Xiao Chen shook his head and sighed softly. Since the first time he met this person, he had never truly figured out the other party. Before the sky turned dark, Xiao Chen returned to the Misty Rain Pavilion. Although he had expected that Chu Chaoyun Ao Jiao and the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter had already left, he still felt it was unfortunate. When Su Yi learned that Xiao Chen had returned, she rushed over. After some thought, she said, Xiao Chen, the Heavenly Book Scholar has been waiting for you for 7 days already. All right, I'll go and meet him. What a fellow. He is really patient. To think that he waited for 7 days. Chapter 2270. Since the Heavenly Book Scholar was here, it had to be about the succession race in the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. Under Su Ye's lead, Xiao Chen met the Heavenly Book Scholar in the Misty Rain Pavilion. The Heavenly Book Scholar was alone. The 9th prince was not by his side. Xiao Chen, I waited for you for 7 days, the Heavenly Book Scholar said with a faint smile. The Heavenly Book Scholar smiled faintly. Then he sized up Xiao Chen as if he was estimating his strength. Xiao Chen said calmly, It looks like there is indeed something important. Otherwise, you would not have waited for so long. The Heavenly Book Scholar nodded and said, There is still 1 more month. The various princes will be heading to the palace to fight for the slots for their guests to enter the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. The number of slots determined how many guests one could bring into the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. It practically affected the outcome of the succession race. How are the slots for the various princes determined? Xiao Chen asked. The Heavenly Book Scholar explained, It is like this. Every prince has 7 basic slots. Then, some more slots are added based on the support of the feudal lords, noble clans, and sects in the Yenwu dynasty. Thanks to you, the first prince's wedding was spoiled, reducing the support of the feudal lords and noble clans. However, the first prince, the 8th prince, and the 13th prince still have the most slots. The first prince already has 16 slots, while the 8th prince and the 15th prince each have 13. The other princes have different slots, but most of them do not exceed 10. The 9th prince only has 8 slots. Xiao Chen thought to himself, the first prince's faction is really horrifying. If I had not ruined that wedding, I would not have been able to deal with him. If he had not spoiled the wedding, the 9th prince would have been able to bring more than 20 slots into the ancient Yan Emperor tomb. Now, he still has 16 slots. The 9th prince's slots are pitifully few. To think that he only has one more slot on top of the base. In that case, what is going on with the slots 3 days from now? The Heavenly Book scholar explained, the slots 3 days from now is the last chance for all the princes. The princes will draw lots to decide who will fight. The winners will obtain a slot. However, the losers will lose a slot. When Xiao Chen heard that, he felt that something was wrong. He said softly, "What a cruel competition. This will probably increase the advantage of the top 3 princes." That's right. This mechanism isn't exactly fair, but that's exactly what the royal family wants. Is to make the strong stronger and the weak weaker. There's no need for the princes who are there to join in the fun to take up extra slots. The Heavenly Book scholar nodded, agreeing with Xiao Chen's point of view. Then he added some of his own thoughts. What does the 9th prince mean? The 9th prince wants you to accompany him to the imperial palace to fight for the final spots. This matter is very important. However, I did not know when you would return, so I waited in this misty rain pavilion. The Heavenly Book scholar explained the whole story. Then he looked at Xiao Chen and waited for his answer. Xiao Chen pondered for a moment before replying softly, "No problem. However, if I win, I want to keep this spot for myself." The Heavenly Book scholar frowned slightly. "You want your friend to enter the ancient Yan Emperor tomb?" The ancient Yan Emperor tomb was a land of fortuitous encounters with many inheritances. As long as one's luck was not bad, one would gain something after entering. The ancient Yan Emperor tomb held great attraction for sovereign emperors. Hence, all the sovereign emperors of the entire martial epoch rushed to the imperial capital Yan City. Hence, this slot was not just a slot but represented many things. The Heavenly Book scholar said, "I can promise you this on behalf of the 9th prince. The 9th prince mainly wants to ensure that he does not lose his slot. As long as you win, the slot will be yours." "It's a deal then. In that case, I'll take my leave first. If you have time, please rush to the prince's residence as soon as possible." After sending off the Heavenly Book scholar, Xiao Chen entered deep thought. After a while, he got Su Yi to gather Wu Meng, Mo Qin, and the others. Wu Meng, Yun Fei, Mo Qin, and the others gathered at the top floor of the Misty Rain Pavilion. Xiao Chen told everyone about his participation in the ancient Yan Emperor tomb. "What do you think about the succession race?" Xiao Chen asked. Wu Meng immediately replied, "Right now, the favorites are still the first prince, the 8th prince, and the 13th prince. Although the first prince's prestige has declined, his accumulations are still there and cannot be underestimated. Actually, the 9th prince does not have much of a chance of becoming the crown prince." Mo Qin asked softly, "Big brother Xiao, does the Heavenly Alliance's headquarters know that you support the 9th prince?" Xiao Chen nodded. "After I decided to support the 9th prince, I secretly told Lord Mu Zifeng. He did not have any objections. He only said that I will handle the Yenwu dynasty's matters and that there is no need to be overly cautious. Given that, it looks like the Heavenly Alliance is somewhat indifferent to this succession race. This is really strange." Confusion flashed in Mo Chen's eyes, appearing somewhat confused. Su Yi said, "The headquarters are just empty words. The important thing is, Lord Xiao, what do you want to achieve? How can we help you?" As for the Heavenly Alliance's headquarters, they definitely have their own views on this matter. Since they did not let us know, they must have their own reasons. There's no need to care about it for now. Xiao Chen thought about it and agreed. The Heavenly Alliance's headquarters would definitely not miss out on such a big show. However, he did not know what the Heavenly Alliance's headquarters thought, which was somewhat difficult to understand. After some thought, Xiao Chen said, "Naturally, my first goal is the Wings of Time. The second goal is to support the ninth prince as the crown prince. As for the third goal, let's not talk about it for now." However, when Xiao Chen mentioned the third eye, Suyi noticed a faint murderous intent in Xiao Chen's eyes. She nodded and said, "I understand. I will get the Misty Rain Pavilion to gather information about the ethereal immortal palace's key in Yen City. The various merchant associations affiliated to the Misty Rain Pavilion will also do their best to support the ninth prince, helping him recruit more capable guests." Xiao Chen nodded slightly. The sovereign emperors who came to participate in the selection of guests could not be considered true experts. The various princes had already promised great benefits to the true experts, personally seeking an audience and taking the initiative to recruit them. The ninth prince frequently led troops to fight enemies. It was hard to say how many resources and connections the ninth prince had in the imperial capital. With the Misty Rain Pavilion's help, the quality of the ninth prince's guests should rise to another level. Let's do this for now. Mo Chen and Bao, calculate how many resources we can use. The main ones are resources that can attract sovereign emperors. We can ignore the others. As for Su Yi, come with me to the ninth prince's residence tomorrow to meet the ninth prince personally. Xiao Chen paused for a moment. Then he looked at Wu Meng and the others and said, "You should make your preparations as well. I will choose one of you to enter the ancient Yen Emperor tomb with me." I feel that there is no need to prepare anything. Big Brother Wu is the strongest among us. Given his strength, he can hold his own against a great perfection sovereign emperor. The others will not be able to help Brother Xiao much. Yun Fei spoke the truth, not taking it too seriously. Talent mattered to cultivators. With the same amount of resources and effort, the one with the most talent would definitely improve faster. Wu Meng's talent was at the peak of the entire Heavenly Alliance's younger generation. Without the restrictions of the headquarters, Wu Meng could rely on the resources of the branches to increase his strength rapidly. Wu Meng's cultivation was the same as Xiao Chen's, a two-vein sovereign emperor. However, Yun Fei and the others were still one-vein sovereign emperors. There was already a significant gap between them. Wu Meng will accompany me. It is settled. Xiao Chen did not like to drag things out. In his heart, Wu Meng was his first choice. Naturally, Wu Meng had no reason to delay such an opportunity. After thanking Xiao Chen, he prepared to enter closed-door cultivation. Early the next morning, just as the sun rose, Xiao Chen and Su Yi rushed to the ninth prince's residence. The ninth prince Wang Yan's residence was in the center of Yen City, adjacent to the imperial capital. This was where most of the prince's residences were. When Xiao Chen approached the ninth prince's residence, he vaguely felt a vast energy guarding the surroundings, appearing transcendent. When Xiao Chen stepped into the residence, it felt like he had entered someone else's small world. A hidden energy grasped his every move. Xiao Chen knew that this energy definitely came from the imperial palace. That was the center of the entire dynasty. It would be hard to avoid some inexplicable energy existing there. These royal residences were adjacent to the imperial palace. Naturally, they were protected by this energy. Xiao Chen. Just as the two were about to enter the ninth prince's residence, a familiar voice rang out. Xiao Chen turned his head to look. It was the eighth prince Wang Feng. A gray-clad old man from the Divine Sword Pavilion stood beside him. Xiao Chen's eyes sank slightly. That old man's aura felt somewhat familiar to Xiao Chen. Back then, in the Smiling Daughter Pavilions, Xiao Chen was facing off against the three princes. Xiao Chen felt that the Divine Sword Pavilion's older generation experts were sneak attacking him. It seemed to be this old man. Chapter 2271. What a coincidence, it's the eighth prince. Xiao Chen's expression was indifferent when he saw the person who had arrived. His gaze gently glanced and landed on the black-clothed old man beside him. That old man was a five-vein sovereign emperor. However, he evaded Xiao Chen's gaze. The eighth prince Wang Feng inspected Xiao Chen, and he felt that the latter's strength was becoming more and more immeasurable. Xiao Chen's strength was much stronger than when he first arrived at the imperial capital. Although Xiao Chen was only a two-vein sovereign emperor, he would be a powerful weapon in the fight against the crown prince if Xiao Chen could recruit him as a guest. Not to mention his strength, just by leading the Misty Rain Pavilion, he managed to mess up his big brother's wedding. It was a great recruitment value. Unfortunately, he had killed the beloved son of the Cloud Prince and was destined to be of no use to him. However, he had already formed an irreconcilable conflict with his eldest brother. At the end of the day, he could still make use of him. It would be best if he didn't start a feud now. The eighth prince Wang Feng immediately smiled and said, "Lord Xiao, if you have time, you can come to my royal residence for a chat. My royal residence is not far from Ninth Brothers. You are welcome at any time." Xiao Chen knew what she was thinking, but he did not expose her. He looked at the old man beside her and asked, "Senior, are you not going to introduce us?" He is the deputy pavilion master of the Divine Sword Pavilion, Dao Yan. He is exactly 500 years old and can be considered my strongest guest this time. If Lord Xiao is interested in the sword Dao, you can discuss it with Senior Dao Yan. The eighth prince didn't hesitate and calmly introduced the items to everyone. Dao Yan said indifferently, "I have long heard of Lord Xiao's name. I welcome your guidance at any time." Just at this moment, the heavenly book scholar and the ninth prince walked out of the prince's residence together. Eighth brother. The ninth prince softly greeted Wang Feng when he saw him. The ninth prince was rather polite to Wang Feng. In reality, even if it was the first prince, as long as he did not work with the Green Lotus cult, he would not pay too much attention to him. "Congratulations, ninth brother. You managed to recruit Lord Xiao as your guest." The eighth prince faintly smiled and said these polite words. Wang Feng didn't care too much about the ninth prince because he wasn't a threat to him. Even if he recruited Xiao Chen, it would not affect the overall situation. His greatest opponents were still the first prince and the 13th prince. Even further down the list, the ninth prince would not be chosen, as he had almost zero influence in Yen City. If he couldn't recruit powerful guests, his overall strength would definitely be at the bottom. There were many such princes. They entered the ancient Yen Emperor tomb to seek fortuitous encounters. He wanted to increase his strength or raise his noble rank based on the fortuitous encounters in the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. After exchanging a few pleasantries, the eighth prince and Dao Yan left. Senior Dao Xian? After leaving, the eighth prince sensed something strange between Dao Yan and Xiao Chen, so he asked. Truth be told, the Divine Sword Pavilion's expert who tried to assassinate him in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion was me. Just now, he might have sensed something, but he shouldn't have confirmed it. Dao Yan pondered for a moment, but still confessed. The eighth prince laughed and said, "I was wondering what it was." Don't worry. Even if he knew, he probably wouldn't care too much, because he had a bigger enemy waiting to be dealt with. It's fine as long as we don't take the initiative to provoke him. This person's bottom line is very obvious, but I really don't know what his upper limit is. Don't worry. This old man knows his limits. When my Ice Dao domain improves further and I comprehend an ice small world, no one in the ancient Yen Emperor tomb will be a match for me. A mere Xiao Qin is even less of a threat to me. The eighth prince's ascension to the throne is of utmost importance. Dao Yan's eyes emitted a cold light that was as dazzling as the stars, bursting out with a terrifying fighting spirit. Right now, Xiao Qin was already a five-vein sovereign emperor. If he had his ice small world, he would truly be unrivaled. A glimmer of excitement flashed in the eighth prince's eyes as he asked, "Are you confident?" Xiao Qin knew that Dao Yan had outstanding talent in the Ice Great Dao. He already had a 9th-layer Ice Dao domain 100 years ago. However, Xiao Qin had not expected Dao Yan to comprehend an ice small world before entering the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. Vaguely, he seemed to feel that luck was slowly shifting from his big brother to himself. Great luck had come. 80%. Dao Yan said softly. Wang Feng was overjoyed. He smiled and said, "What resources do you need? I will arrange it. I will definitely satisfy you." The Divine Sword Pavilion does not lack resources. Your Highness, please wait for the news. No way. Since there is an 80% chance, I have to make it a 100% chance. In the end, the Divine Sword Pavilion's resources are slightly inferior to the royal court's. I still have one more chance to enter the Heavenly Palace's treasure trove, but I have not used it yet. I'll use it on Senior Dao Yen. The 8th prince's intentions were set in stone, not allowing Dao Yen to refuse. Dao Yen felt excited. He had heard of the Heavenly Palace's treasure trove before. That was where the royal court stored their treasures. The treasures that could enter the treasure trove were all priceless and incredibly rare. Dao Yen could not refuse. In that case, many thanks, 8th prince. Well said, well said. Come, let's go over. The 8th prince felt incredibly excited. He immediately changed his route and headed straight for the palace. Wang Yen and the Heavenly Fate Scholar looked at Wang Feng and Dao Yen in front of the 9th prince's residence, entering deep thought. Seeing that Xiao Chen seemed to be interested in Dao Yen, Wang Yen said, "That is Dao Yen. He was a true inheritor of the Divine Sword Pavilion 400 years ago. Before he turned 500 years old, he became the Divine Sword Pavilion's vice pavilion master. Back then, he was a demonic genius that shook up the entire Yanwu dynasty. He remained in seclusion for several hundred years. When he suddenly appeared, people remembered that he was not even 500 years old yet." Xiao Chen asked, "Is he very strong?" "Yes, very strong. Of all the prince's guests this time, this Dao Yan's strength is at least in the top 3. The scarier thing is that 8th brother's companions are all outstanding talents of similar sections. With the support of all the sects in the Yanwu dynasty, he does not need to spend much resources to recruit guests." When mentioning Wang Feng, the 9th prince had to admit that the other party was very strong. Sects and factions had at least 10,000 years of inheritance. They would not be lacking in resources. Not only would they not waste Wang Feng's resources, but they could even help him recruit some people with special abilities. After the 1st prince's wedding was ruined, the 9th prince could no longer suppress the 8th prince on paper. Now, they were back at the starting line. The Heavenly Book Scholar smiled and said, "Let's not talk about this for now. Pavilion Master Su and Lord Xiao, please come in first." After entering the residence and discussing some important matters, Xiao Chen said softly, "9th prince, this Xiao has something else to say aside from the fight for the slots in 1 month." "What is it?" Wang Yen let out a soft cry of surprise, finding it strange. Xiao Chen said straightforwardly, "This Xiao would like to invite the 9th prince to fight for the crown prince position." Wang Yen smiled and said, "Naturally, I want to fight for the crown prince position. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste of time to recruit guests and ask Lord Xiao to fight for the final slot for me? You still do not understand what I mean. I want you to fight for the crown prince position from the bottom of your heart, to think about ascending to the Yen Emperor's throne, not to go through the motions like now. You are only going through the motions for the sake of the illusory ethereal immortal palace, reluctantly entering the ancient Yen Emperor tomb to attack the 1st prince." Xiao Chen directly exposed Wang Yan's self-deception. Wang Yan had never truly thought of fighting for the crown prince position. From the way he talked about the Dao Yen earlier, it was clear that he had no ambition. To think that Wang Yan did not care about the 8th prince at all, not feeling any pressure at all. Wang Yan's expression flickered. Then he looked at Xiao Chen and said, "It looks like I misjudged you earlier. Xiao Chen, you are just an ordinary person. It turns out that you only agreed to my request to fight for fame and profit." Xiao Chen smiled coldly and interrupted, "Misjudged? What's wrong? Previously, you felt that I did not care about fame and profit, that I was a person who did not have much ambition even though I dual cultivated righteous and demonic. If you let me into the ancient Yen Emperor tomb, I would not cause any losses to the dynasty, right?" The sudden change in the atmosphere somewhat surprised the Heavenly Book Scholar. He quickly said, "Xiao Chen, the 9th prince did not mean that. Don't speak up for him. When I first met you, I did not truly leave. I clearly heard what the ninth prince said to you. I'm not his best choice. He simply could not find anyone. In the end, he had no choice but to seek my help. If he could, he would definitely choose someone purely of the righteous Tao. Am I right? Xiao Chen showed a calm expression as he looked straight at the ninth prince. The expressions of the heavenly book scholar and the ninth prince immediately changed. They did not know how to respond. Nothing to say? In that case, let me say it. From the very start, I knew why you sought me out. I do not care about the suspicions in your heart. As long as you can help me, that is enough. I do not care who becomes the Yen Emperor. What does that have to do with me? Xiao Chen did not stop speaking. He continued, however, I have a grudge with the first prince. We are at a point where only one of us can survive. Yet you are still like an ostrich. What use do I have for you? If he ascends to the throne, I will not be able to escape death. I will have to flee the Yanwu dynasty. If I were alone, I would not care. However, I still have friends. Pavilion Master Su will not be able to leave. My merchant associations will not be able to leave either. What about them? If even one of them dies, I, Xiao Chen, will not be able to accept it. At the mention of death, Xiao Chen could not control his emotions. He looked at the ninth prince and said sullenly, I'll say something unpleasant. If you had the status of the 8th prince or the 13th prince, would Wang Fei dare to touch my martial nephew? Would my martial nephew die in such an unjust manner? I, Xiao Chen, am just that vulgar. Are you satisfied now? When Su Yi saw that Xiao Chen seemed to lose control of his emotions, she quickly stepped forward and pressed on his hand, comforting him softly. Back then, she had rushed out of the city with Xiao Chen. Only she knew this the best. Xiao Chen had never let go of Ling Yu's death. Back then, Ling Yu's death had dealt a greater psychological blow to Xiao Chen than many people imagined. Xiao Chen did not say anything because he did not want others to worry. However, the frustration and helplessness in his heart never faded. With every day that passed, this burden grew 100 times heavier. When the ninth prince saw Xiao Chen's expression, he felt somewhat startled. After knowing Xiao Chen for so long, he had rarely seen the ninth prince so angry. It was rare to see him so angry. Usually, no matter how angry he was, he would never show it on his face. The ninth prince always remained calm, giving off an unfathomable feeling. However, when the ninth prince truly revealed his rage, his aura was somewhat frightening. Chapter 2272. The atmosphere turned somewhat heavy. The ninth prince had not expected Xiao Chen's outburst at all. The heavenly book scholar was stunned for a long time at the side before reacting. Honestly speaking, Xiao Chen's words were overboard. However, when he thought about it carefully, he felt that it made sense. The ninth prince could be a good person. Even if he did not try to become the crown prince, Wang Fei would not dare to kill him due to their blood relationship. However, Xiao Chen was different. He did not have such a status to protect himself and his friends. Once the first prince succeeded in ascending to the throne, it would be extremely disadvantageous to Xiao Chen. He might even have to pay a heavy price. In terms of transactions, the ninth prince was clearly thinking of himself in this transaction. The ninth prince only thought about using the key in Xiao Chen's hands to prevent the demonic Tao cultivators from obtaining the wings of time if the ethereal immortal palace appeared. The ninth prince had never thought about what Xiao Chen would do if the first prince ascended to the throne. To Xiao Chen, this was unfair. Why should he help such a selfish person? What is the point of having you? The ninth prince's words sounded harsh, but they were not overboard at all. This was the truth. After speaking, Xiao Chen appeared somewhat confused. Earlier, he actually wanted to kill the ninth prince. Now, he wanted to kill the ninth prince, even blaming some of his resentment on the ninth prince. If not for Su Yi pressing down on his hand, who knew what would have happened? After Xiao Chen calmed down, he was distracted for a while, appearing somewhat dispirited. He felt a deep helplessness. He had never felt so cowardly before. To think that he could say such shameless words, shifting the blame to someone else. This was simply laughably childish. Sorry for the offense earlier, Your Highness. No matter what, my martial nephew's death has nothing to do with the 9th prince. I will apologize in the future. See, let's go. Wait a moment. The 9th prince quickly called out to Xiao Chen. Then he stood up and said, Lord Xiao, there is no need to blame yourself. You are right. If I had the same status as little 13, first brother would not have dared to touch Lord Zhao's martial nephew. I have always been thinking about how to contribute to the dynasty, how to stop the demonic Dao cultivators. I was indeed eager for quick success and did not consider things from Lord Zhao's perspective. So, Xiao Chen said softly without turning his head. If Lord Xiao is willing to become my guest, I am willing to do my best to fight for the position of Crown Prince. The 9th Prince Wang Yan said, enunciating each word with a grave expression. When the Heavenly Book scholar heard that, he trembled slightly. He knew that the 9th Prince was a man of his word. Once he decided on something, he would not hesitate and go all out to execute it. However, it was completely different from his original intentions. The Heavenly Book scholar suddenly revealed a doubtful expression. Then, a pair of profound talisman seals formed in his eyes. The moment this seal appeared, he saw the general star above the 9th prince's head rapidly fall. Instead, the originally dim imperial star gradually glowed and rose. He had advised the 9th prince in the past. The 9th prince was a talented general who could lead an army to war and defend a region. However, he did not have the talent of an emperor, and his emperor's star was dim. Not to mention the 3 princes, he could not even compare to some of the other princes. However, the 9th prince's general star had suddenly fallen, and his emperor's star had risen. The sudden change in fate Dao was a strange situation that he had never seen before, but it really appeared in front of him today. How can it be? Is it because of me? The Heavenly Book scholar looked around and fixed his gaze on Xiao Chen. However, the Heavenly Book scholar did not dare to try to advise Xiao Chen's emperor star. Even if the Heavenly Book scholar were 10 times more courageous, he would not dare to try to advise Xiao Chen's emperor star again. 9th Prince, are you sure? Xiao Chen asked softly as he turned to look at Wang Yan. I'm sure. Wang Yan replied softly, as the saying goes, one word is like a wake-up call. Most of the time, I do not like to take the initiative to resolve problems. I only want to wait for problems to appear before thinking of a way to resolve them. I never thought of taking the initiative to control everything. Even if I manage to stop first brother this time, what about next time? There will always be times when I cannot guard against it. You are right. I have indeed been deceiving myself. Su Yi exchanged glances with Xiao Chen. When she saw the other party nod slightly, she said, as long as the 9th prince says it, the Misty Rain Pavilion will do its best to help the 9th prince seize the throne at all costs. Many thanks. However, even if I am determined to become the crown prince and have the Misty Rain Pavilion's help, my chances of victory are still very slim. I would also like to ask, Lord Xiao, have you really thought it through? Wang Yan countered with a question, his expression slowly turning calm on his handsome face. Xiao Chen replied softly, I always felt that as long as you fought for it, you would have a 50% chance of success. If you did not fight for it, you would not even have a 10% chance. That was how you were previously. You did not even give me a 10% chance. Even if I did my best, I would not have any chance of success. Do you understand what I mean? I understand. Good. I will enter closed-door cultivation during this period. You can discuss the matter of recruiting guests with Pavilion Master Su. There is no need to worry about resources. As long as you do your best, I have nothing to say if you fail, the 9th prince said after some thought. The 9th prince said after some thought, if you are going to enter closed-door cultivation, then do it at my residence. I have the best closed-door cultivation room of the royal clan. The spiritual energy here is incomparable to anywhere else. You can experience the wonders for yourself. Alright, I will stay here, then. Xiao Chen did not stand on ceremony, directly agreeing. After entering the secret realm of the residence, Xiao Chen entered closed-door cultivation. Compared to the other prince's guests, Xiao Chen's cultivation was still too low. Most of the guests that entered the ancient Yen emperor tomb were sovereign emperors several hundred years old. There was no lack of older generation demonic geniuses like Dao Yen. When they were young, they had pretty good talent and sufficient resources. Furthermore, with their accumulations over time, there would definitely not be any weaklings. Among them, there might be some experts skilled in a great Dao. By relying on the accumulation of time and hundreds of years, they could condense a small world expert. A great perfection sovereign emperor who could condense a small world was definitely an anomaly that could fight a peak sovereign emperor. There would not be many of such people, at most 4 or 5. However, just one of them would be practically unrivaled in the ancient Yen emperor tomb. When facing such an expert, Xiao Chen had to think about the resources he could use. My cultivation has already soared. It is practically impossible for me to break through to 3-vein sovereign emperor within a short time. I can't raise my cultivation. If I want to raise my strength, I can only think in other directions. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. After a while, he thought of 3 directions. The first was the Thunder Dao. After refining the 100,000-year-old Thunder Cliff Tree, his Thunder Dao domain had already reached the 5th layer. Of all the Dao domains, the Thunder Dao was the highest. With the support of the Alloy Dragon armor, his 5th layer Dao domain could rival a 6th layer Dao domain in might. With the support of the Saber Dao domain and the Ice Dao domain, it could rival a 9th layer Dao domain. He possessed 3 Dao domains, all of which were condensed in his divine seal. This was extremely rare among sovereign emperors. The might of the 3 Dao domains far surpassed that of a single Dao domain, extremely horrifying. However, it was still somewhat insufficient. I still have to add this. Xiao Chen opened his palm, and a golden divine lightning talisman slowly came out. Xiao Chen's palm seemed to turn into a boundless sea. The golden talisman gave off a bright electric light. However, none of it leaked out of his palm. The immortal epic's thunder immortal ancestor had condensed the 10,000 tribulation divine lightning from the immortal epic. The talisman in Xiao Chen's hand had only used 1/10 of its power, but its might was already terrifying. The talisman in his hand had already been firmly branded into his blue dragon divine seal, and it had perfectly fused with his soul power. As long as he willed it, his soul power would erupt, and he would be able to release the tribulation lightning within the divine lightning talisman. Compared to the god of lightning eye of the past, it was much more profound. However, now Xiao Chen wanted to go further. He wanted to infuse the talisman in his palm into his Thunder Dao domain. Then, the 3-layered Dao domains, supported by the Alloy Dragon armor, formed a Dao domain that could resist a small world. Xiao. After confirming the direction, Xiao Chen put away the divine thunder talisman and a scroll appeared in his palm. It was the Taiji Yin-Yang diagram. Ever since the Taiji Yin-Yang diagram was condensed into a painting, the Taiji Yin-Yang diagram had become a painting. Ever since the Taiji Yin-Yang diagram condensed into a scroll, Xiao Chen rarely used it. Now it was time for him to do so. This would be his strongest defensive means. He wanted to raise the Heavenly Snow Divine Flame and the Primal Chaos Heavenly Flame to rank 7 within 1 month. They would become his second trump card. The third trump card was the Mahmya Abstinence Violation Saber Technique, Merciless Killing. If heaven wanted to kill, who would dare to not die? As for the final Dragon's Gate's Forbidden Art, the God-Demon Body Unsealing Technique, it was best not to use it. Hence, once he used it, even Xiao Chen would not be able to control the consequences. Aside from this, there was the improvement of the 10,000 Dragons art. The 9th prince was right. This secret realm of the royal residence was indeed pretty good. The spiritual energy here was far denser than that of the outside world. It was like the dragon vein buried deep in the royal palace connected to these royal residences. Cultivating here would go smoothly and incomparably miraculous. After determining his direction, Xiao Chen muttered to himself, "These are trump cards that can temporarily raise my combat prowess. As for the Supreme Dragon Fist and Firmament's Rage, I have to stabilize them first." While Xiao Chen was in closed-door cultivation, the various royal residences outside the royal palace were not peaceful. The era of great competition in the Yenwu dynasty had arrived without anyone noticing. Chapter 2273. Thunder Mark Grass, Thunder Spirit Blood Ganoderma, Demonic Cloud Flower, Black Thunder Fruit. Xiaochen took out the other demonic fruits mentioned on the Black Mountain from his storage ring. These demonic fruits could not increase one's cultivation. Hence, he did not refine them that day. However, they were very valuable, so he kept them when he saw them. Every one of them contained pure Thunder Great Tao energy. However, they were all tainted with a demonic nature. To demonic Tao cultivators, they were supreme treasures with boundless value. Righteous Tao cultivators needed lunar water to wash away the demonic nature before they could refine them. As for Xiaochen, he did not have to worry too much. He directly consumed the natural treasures that no one cared about on the Black Mountain. If other demonic Tao cultivators were here, they would definitely exclaim in shock. This was too wasteful. Naturally, these incredibly precious herbs had to be refined into heavenly pills to ensure that their medicinal properties would not scatter. However, Xiaochen did not have any worries, as these things cost nothing to him. After Xiaochen consumed the many demonic nature pills, his entire body erupted with black lightning fire. The aura of the Thunder Great Tao in his body continuously soared, and he slowly broke through to the fourth layer of the Thunder Tao domain. Right now, the Thunder Tao was Xiaochen's strongest and most powerful foundation. He wanted to advance it to the next layer and see if his Thunder Tao domain could break through to the fifth layer. At that time, with the support of the alloy dragon armor, it would be even more horrifying. 7 days later, Xiaochen opened his eyes, and electric light flickered in them. His entire body radiated a terrifying Thunder Tao might. Unfortunately, I am still a little short. However, I managed to solidify my Thunder Tao domain to the peak of the fourth layer. All I need is an opportunity to break through. After spitting out a mouthful of turbid qi, Xiaochen muttered to himself, I should try it out next. Just how powerful was his pinnacle lightning Tao? The secret realm was a small world. Even if he caused a commotion here, there would not be any commotion in the outside world. Xiaochen stood up, and his figure flashed. Then he arrived at the center of this small world, a vast and boundless land with undulating desolate mountains. Bang! 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 An electric dragon image came out of the black gloves on Xiaochen's hands. It circled around Xiaochen's arm and spread to his whole body. Then, the two dragons merged. Purple dragon patterns appeared on his silver armor, and a pendant made of a reverse dragon scale hung between his eyebrows. Xiaochen's entire aura changed. It was the alloy dragon armor that belonged solely to Xiaochen. With a thought, his peak fourth layer Thunder Tao domain appeared. A horrifying Tao might filled the sky with thunderclouds. Break! Dragon patterns flickered on the armor. The dragon soul contained in the armor activated the formations in it, bringing out a peak fourth layer Tao domain. Suddenly, it rose another level, reaching the peak of the fifth level. Ice Tao domain! Xiaochen shouted, and his second layer Ice Tao domain appeared. Immediately, heavy snow flew, and cold winds blew endlessly. The might of the Wei rose again, reaching the sixth layer. Saber Tao domain! Boom! The three Tao domains layered over each other. Xiaochen was like a powerful treasure saber standing in the world. The Tao might emanating from his body broke through layer by layer. Seventh layer, eighth layer, ninth layer. The might of the Tao reached the ninth layer. Still not enough. 10,000 tribulation divine lightning, appear. The blue dragon divine seal shone brightly in Xiaochen's soul pool. Undercurrents immediately surged in the vast soul pool. There seemed to be a true dragon leaping about. The talisman formed by the immortal epic's 10,000 tribulation divine lightning was like a dragon breaking out of the sea, revealing the tip of an iceberg. In that instant, the entire soul pool filled with golden electric light, filling every corner. A golden talisman slowly appeared in Xiaochen's palm. Rumble! As the golden talisman surged, the entire secret realm trembled. It seemed like horrifying energy was brewing in Xiaochen's body. Boom! When the golden talisman completely appeared, Xiaochen's Tao might underwent a complete transformation, undergoing a qualitative change. Now, It reached a might that only a 10th layer Dao domain could display. Under the guidance of the golden talisman in Xiao Chen's palm, its might even surpassed that, looking incredibly horrifying. At this moment, Xiao Chen felt like he grasped a surging power. Even this small world seemed weak in his eyes. With just a light touch, the sky of this mystic realm would shatter into pieces and crumble. Withdraw. The talisman in Xiao Chen's soul pool, which had just revealed a small portion, vanished. The golden talisman returned to Xiao Chen's palm. Then, the 3 Dao domains returned to his body, and the alloy dragon armor slipped off his body. In that instant, Xiao Chen turned from the incredibly horrifying thunder god to a harmless 2-vein sovereign emperor that looked like nothing special. I can release and withdraw at will. It looks like those demonic nature Dao fruits were of great help to me. If my thunder Dao domain had not reached the peak of the 4th layer, it would have been impossible for me to control this 10th layer Dao might. Xiao Chen muttered to himself. At the same time, he felt that his strength had reached a bottleneck in all aspects. His cultivation was stuck at peak 2-vein sovereign emperor. His thunder Dao domain was stuck at the peak of the 4th layer, unable to advance any further. His 10,000 dragons art was stuck at the peak of the 2nd layer, unable to break through to the 3rd layer and reach the stage of 10,000 dragons soaring. His saber technique was stuck at merciless killing, unable to reach consummation. His saber Dao domain was also hard to break through. Perhaps, the ancient Yen Emperor tomb is an opportunity for me to make a breakthrough in all aspects. A brilliant light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. If he broke through these bottlenecks one by one, it would be a miracle. If Xiao Chen broke through all these bottlenecks, his strength would undergo a true qualitative change. Even he could not imagine what it would be like. Let's not think about this for now. I'll stop here with the Thunder Dao domain for now. The next step is to properly refine the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram. Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and looked at the painting in his hand, filled with anticipation. It was time to use the flame seeds that he had exchanged for with his military merits before leaving the Heavenly Alliance. If one looked at the imperial capital from the starry heavens, one would see the 4th prince's residence in the imperial palace radiating dragon chi. Draconic energy surged, and their eyes shone with radiance. They revealed their ambitions as they stared above the imperial palace. Above them was the true dragon sword formed by the imperial capital's dragon vein, the Yen imperial sword. Whoever could hold this treasure sword, which symbolized the supreme authority of the Yenwu dynasty, would be the true dragon son of heaven, able to ascend to the Yen emperor's throne. At this moment, the aura of a great desolate Ian bloodline spread to every corner of the secret realm in the 13th prince's residence. Pairs of golden primordial divine eyes illuminated the sky, making it look like the sky was covered in gold. It was a shocking sight. At the summit of the highest mountain in the secret realm, the 13th prince Wang Yi showed a smile as he looked at the golden sky, filled with lofty aspirations. 2 old men stood beside the 13th prince. One of them wore a straw raincoat and carried a fishing rod on his back, looking like a fisherman. This was the White Marsh Beast Empire's royal teacher, Sikong Shu. The other person wore silver dragon robes and exuded might without showing any anger. He gave off the faint air of kingship. This was the Divine Dragon Empire's Silver Dragon King. Wang Yi said indifferently, "Seniors, we can begin now." The Silver Dragon King nodded slightly. Then he shouted only one word, "Fight." This shout seemed to ignite the great desolate Ian aura that filled the sky. Below, the vast world erupted with a startling battle intent. Many figures hidden in the dark appeared. Every one of them was a sovereign emperor and possessed a pure great desolate Ian bloodline. A startling chaotic battle started. The Silver Dragon King smiled and said, 13th Prince, aside from the Golden Crow Empire, all the sovereign emperors under 500 years old have gathered here. The last 10 people to emerge from this chaotic battle will follow you to the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. Sovereign emperors with a great desolate Ian bloodline are very strong in the first place, able to cross realms to kill enemies. Then, this old man can't think of any reason for the 13th prince not to be the crown prince. Wang Yi rejoiced when he heard that. He could not help guffawing. Senior Silver Dragon King, you are right. This is brilliant. The Bushin Palace truly lives up to being a super faction with the deepest accumulations. Such combat prowess is truly shocking. However, I originally wanted to reserve 3 spots for Brother Qin Ming, Brother Bai Yunfei, and Brother Xiao. Unexpectedly, the 3 of them participated in the battle as well. Sikong Shu said indifferently, the 3 of them are the strongest outstanding talents of the Bushin Palace. Even if they fight against the older generation outstanding talents several hundred years old, they will not be at a disadvantage. 13th Prince, don't worry. They will definitely be among the last 10 standing. A bright light flashed in Wang Yi's eyes. After some thought, he said, is that so? In that case, I really have to take a good look. There were at least 400 sovereign emperors gathered in the secret realm. This chaotic battle was very startling. The Bushin Palace ruled over the 8 great empires. Its deep accumulations were somewhat terrifying. As the Silver Dragon King said, every one of the sovereign emperors here was incredibly strong. Indeed, there was no reason for the Bushin Palace to lose when the 10 were chosen to fight in the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. However, the matters of the world were hard to predict. The ancient Yen Emperor tomb contained many variables. No one could guarantee that they would have the last laugh. The various princes anxiously recruited guests, choosing people with special talents. However, the secret realm of the first prince's mansion seemed a little strange. Inside the secret realm, Wang Fei showed a bored expression as he sat on the throne, downing cup after cup of wine. A middle-aged man, a 6-vein sovereign emperor, stood beside Wang Fei. He held a saber in his hand as he looked to the front with a grave expression. This person was Zui Yu, a peak expert that the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs nurtured in secret. The Imperial Ancestral Temple had been preparing for this succession race since several hundred years ago. This 6-vein sovereign emperor Zui Yu was the trump card that they carefully prepared for the first prince Wang Fei. A fortress ship with a blood moon banner hung in front of Zui Yu, anchored at the summit of a mountain range. The blood moon, this was the symbol of the Shuowu dynasty. A black-clad man whose cultivation was unfathomable stood in the hold of the fortress ship. He had an eye patch on the left side of his face, revealing his eye. If one were to look carefully, they would discover that there seemed to be a row of vermilion dots on the pupil of his left eye that was exposed under the eye patch. It was extremely strange. A man and a woman sat beside this black-clad man. Aside from them, the others stood behind these 3. The man on the left had a handsome face and a lotus-like air, showing a smile on his face. His elegant facial features nearly made people forget about his bald head and his identity as a monk. This was the previous Black Lotus Church Holy Son, the current Black Lotus sect venerate, Ming Xian. If Xiao Chen were here, he would be shocked to see the woman on the right, thinking that Yang Qin came back to life. It would not be hard for those who paid attention to her to guess that she was the Azure Lotus Holy Daughter. At this moment, the focus was not on the 3 but on the person standing helplessly with his cultivation sealed. Lord, I already searched his soul. He does not have any memories of the inheritance key in his mind. However, the black-clothed man with the mysterious left eye was dissatisfied. He looked at that person and muttered to himself, Jiang, the only son of the previous heavenly dragon. If even he does not know the whereabouts of the inheritance key, wouldn't that mean that no one in this world knows? Chapter 2274. The mysterious and evil left eye and the deeply hidden temperament caused the man in black to feel a kind of fear from the bottom of his heart. Even Jiang He was no exception. Half a year ago, someone started chasing Jiang He. At first, he suspected that it was an assassin hired by the Golden Dragon Palace. However, he soon found out that it was the Shuowu dynasty's people. However, Jiang He did not care about it. He had a fortuitous encounter and obtained a movement technique that touched upon the space Great Tao. Even if a peak sovereign emperor came to capture him, they might not be able to. Furthermore, he had other trump cards, so he did not fear them. Hence, Jiang He was extremely daring, whether it was a super faction or a hidden sect. As long as there was something that caught his eye, he would rush over and steal it, not fearing being caught. However, 2 months ago, when Jiang He first arrived at the imperial capital, he met this group of people. Jiang He did not know the identity of this person before him. He only knew that Ming Xian and that woman addressed him as milord. I told you, right? I don't know anything about the inheritance key at all. I have no value to you at all. Why the need to be so persistent? Jiang He asked the evil-eyed man, who stood up, with a bitter smile. The black-clad man glanced at Jiang He and said, aside from your father, the Heaven Dragon, no one else in the world knows the secret of the inheritance key. Even the purple gold dragon emperor could not tell him after torturing him for 20-odd years. In that case, go and look for him. At the same time, send my regards. My unfilial son cannot save him. Helplessness flashed in the depths of Jiang He's eyes. However, he hid it very well. Jiang He showed a carefree and indifferent attitude as he laughed softly. The black-clad man smiled coldly and ignored Jiang He. How could one go to the Starry Heavens Dragon prison just because one wanted to? Furthermore, even the purple gold dragon emperor could not say anything. He might not be able to ask. Milord, is that possible? The inheritance key's location does have something to do with him. However, he does not know it. Ming Xian stood up and analyzed the situation from a perspective that no one had thought of. What do you mean? The black-clad man asked, feeling curious. For example, something very important on him was actually given to him by the Heaven Dragon, but he does not know it. Ming Xian sized up Jiang He, trying to find something on him. We've searched him from head to toe. There are no other clues. Beside Jiang He, a purple-clothed old man answered somberly. However, we did find something interesting in his memories. There are a lot of treasures in his storage ring, but I can't open it. Jiang He chuckled softly. Do you want it? If you let me go, I can give them all to you. The black-clad man showed a cold expression, showing no interest. He sat back down and said, continue to seal him. When the time comes, bring him to the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. Perhaps he will recall something when he sees the ethereal immortal palace. If it doesn't work, then we'll use the second plan, which is to force a breakthrough. In the main hall of the ship, no one dared to disobey the black-clothed man's words. Even Ming Xian and the Azure Lotus Holy Daughter were clearly inferior to him in terms of status. Outside the warship, the Imperial Ancestral Temple expert Sui Yu, who sat beside the throne, said after some thought, First Prince, are you really going to bring these people to the ancient Yen Emperor tomb? I do not doubt their strength. But these people are clearly demonic Dao cultivators. Could it be? Wang Fei said calmly, Commander Zhua, don't worry. Getting me to approach these people is the idea of some of the royal clan's elders. Even Imperial Father has to show some respect to these elders. Do you understand what I mean? I know. I understand all this. However, Zhuyu showed a grave expression. He paused somewhat, not knowing how to continue. Using the Azure Lotus Church to keep the hidden spirit temple in check was the royal clan's strategy 1,000 years ago. It looked like the results were pretty good. In the past, the hidden spirit temple had never overridden the royal authority or interfered with the succession race. However, Zhuyu felt that something was wrong. He knew that the royal clan's elders wanted to use this group of people. However, if they were not careful, it might lead to a great disaster. Commander Zhua, this is something for the elders to worry about. There is no need for us to bother. Let me ask you, how strong are these people? Zhuyu indicated that he understood. Then he seriously analyzed, they are very strong. Practically none of them are weak. At the very least, they are as strong as great perfection sovereign emperors. Some of them are even troublesome to deal with. Wang Fei nodded. After some thought, he asked, how strong is that evil-eyed man? It is somewhat unfathomable. If we fight, I estimate that he has only a 50% chance of victory. At the mention of that evil-eyed man, Sui Yu felt some fear. Wang Fei smiled and said, good. As long as he is strong, that is enough. I have already lost too much. I have to win this succession race. Hence, Commander Zhua, please don't worry. I can tell you that demonic Dao cultivators have entered every succession race. Zuiyu felt slightly startled when he heard that. Clearly, he had not expected such a thing. The royal clan is very clear on this. However, no matter how bold these people are, they would not dare to cause trouble in the ancient Yan Huang tomb. After that, some of the demonic Dao loose cultivators would even be secretly recruited by the royal clan. Hence, the royal clan has always turned a blind eye to this. The first prince said calmly, "This world is not black or white. Commander Zhua, you have been cultivating bitterly for a long time. Although you are strong, your thoughts are somewhat pure." Zuiyu remained silent. He kept feeling that something was wrong with this. However, since the first prince already said that, there was no need for him to continue arguing. On this particular day, in the secret realm of the ninth prince's residence, Shao Chen appeared fatigued. He spat out a mouthful of turbid qi and sighed softly, "I finally raised the primal chaos heavenly flame and the heavenly snow divine flame to rank 7. A Taiji yin-yang flame diagram appeared above Shao Chen's head, covering the sky and sun. The Taiji yin-yang flame diagram shrouded the entire secret realm sky. The two heavenly flames chased each other in the sky like fish. The Taiji yin-yang flame diagram existed with the sky, looking down on all life. As the flames swam about, the entire world seemed to spin. When Shao Chen looked around, the scene around him distorted at the edges of his vision. After the two primal chaos grade flames rose to rank 7, they formed a Taiji yin-yang flame diagram again. As the flames swam about, they actually changed some of the spatial laws, giving Shao Chen a pleasant surprise. "Withdraw!" Shao Chen shouted. He opened his hand, and the picturesque sky appeared in his palm, firmly grasping it. Shao Chen revealed a satisfied smile on his fatigued face. Then, he said softly, "I did not work hard in vain. Unfortunately, I do not have time to break through to the 10,000 Dragons Art's third layer. However, with these two trump cards, the ancient Yen Emperor tomb should not require me to execute a forbidden art. Dragon's Gate's forbidden art, 9 Heavens God Demon Body Unsealing Technique. The stronger the bloodline, the stronger the might of the forbidden art. Using the blue dragon bloodline to trace the source, one could allow an ancient blue dragon to undergo a blood rebirth. If one was strong enough, it might even turn into a great desolate Aeon ancestor dragon. However, once Shao Chen executed the forbidden art, his divine energy and soul energy would burn up. More seriously, if one did not have sufficient willpower and could not reverse the forbidden art, one would exhaust all their life force. To put it more bluntly, most people would not be able to reverse the effects of this forbidden technique. Once this forbidden art was executed, most people would have the determination and boldness to turn the situation around and perish together. The forbidden art was too risky. If not necessary, Shao Chen did not want to execute it. This was especially so for the 9 Heavens God Demon Body Unsealing Technique. If he failed, he would not be able to bear the consequences. I hope so. Shao Chen felt that this trip to the ancient Yen Emperor tomb was a fortuitous encounter for him. However, the danger he faced might be the most competitive risk he had ever taken in his life. Today should be the day of the competition for slots. It is time to go out and see who the 9th prince has recruited. Whether Shao Chen was willing or not, it was already time. He needed to go out. Shao Chen closed his eyes and rested for a while. When he opened them again, his fatigue was swept away. He recovered his usual calm and collected demeanor and walked out of the secret realm, preparing to meet up with the 9th prince Wang Yan. Shao Chen wanted to see who the 9th prince Wang Yan had recruited. If Shao Chen was not strong enough, he would not be able to help the 9th prince obtain the throne alone. That is, the moment Shao Chen came out, he looked up and discovered a scarlet color covering the sky. This startled him. When he looked carefully, he discovered a scarlet warship exuding a horrifying might. A war banner fluttered on the warship's bow. Shao Chen could not help exclaiming, feeling excited. The Scarlet Blood War Banner. That is the Scarlet Blood Warship. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.